Hey everybody, welcome back to Dialog Choices Podcast. It's been a while. I don't know what this voice is that I'm doing.
Why did you? Yeah, why? Did April somehow change your accent all of a sudden?
April changed my nationality.
We just prefer to avoid the whole month because it's just one of those months, you know.
See, what's the most clickbaity topic to start this with?
Oh, do you have questions already?
I mean, you gotta hit him with a zinger at the beginning to keep him hooked. And they're like, man, I gotta listen to this 2-hour podcast. They opened with that zinger there, like how Keith accidentally made a Fursona.
Did you You did it on purpose, though. That wasn't accidental.
No, it's well. How do I put this?
Are you a furry?
No, this is it's confusing. I kickstarted something.
No, it's not a Facebook relationship.
I kickstarted
status.
something, and the perk results. I'm gonna have a Fursona, I guess, or I'm gonna have a character that is named me and is an animal, and it's in a printed book.
Lovely.
Okay.
FOMO mechanics are really effective.
Well, that's
Wait, was a FOMO mechanic?
That's not a Fursona.
Well, it's a Kickstarter perk.
Oh, right.
But I was like, I don't want to. I mean, it's art for cheap, and it'll be nice because I'll have this book and be like, hey, look, that little thing on that picture, that little thing on that page represents me. That's kind of nice. And it's like, what am I not pay $15 for that?
Exactly.
so I just did it, and I'm like, all right, yeah, it's a.
Well, that's not a Fursona.
But it is going to be a character named me that
like
is an anthropomorphic animal, which will be funny.
Well, that doesn't matter. There's probably a million fucking
we gotta
Keith the Hedgehog.
We got to
sensationalize
it so that people are like, oh my god, I can't believe that happened. I better watch this podcast.
Well, it's a little bit too early on the podcast. Because now 2 minutes in, and they're like, "Oh, okay, I get it."
Because now I can title it that, and they're like, "Oh my god, what's this hot jams that's going to happen here?"
Keith, they're listening to us right now. We have given the game away.
Oh no! But no, the upside of having an audience and saying from time to time that like I like these anthropomorphic characters and this thing and that thing and so on is that you get recommendations. And so, what was it?
So is it a book or is it a video game?
Well, I found it on accident via Kickstarter. Because what happened is a webcomic that I've already been reading due to audience suggestions was Oren's Forge. And that's like, you can almost contextualize it as like a prequel to like Zootopia and Beastars, where it's like, it's got the whole predator and prey dynamic in society, but it's like completely in the wild. So it's like it's essentially herbivores discovering society as a concept and like building weaponry and so on, and realizing that they can like live somewhere and defend it instead of hiding forever and running from all the carnivores and so on. And so it's just like a really well drawn sort of Disney style webcomic that's been going on for years. And I was like, I kind of want to support these things. And then there was an announcement like, hey, we're going to have a Kickstarter. I'm like, I wanted that. So I kickstarted that so I could get a physical copy of the book when it comes out to support that comic. Because I like to support these web comics that I read all the time for free and so on. Like I have like a shelf of like printed web comics that I read for free before I bought them. And then in the suggestions, it was like, hey, Rudek and the Bear Volume 2 was in Kickstarter. And I looked at that. And it's like the Soviet-Polish border in the old times, like a border crossing agents sort of contextualized thing with just a bunch of sad, tired-looking animals. And it's this like sort of lighthearted, sort of grim comedy about those kind of political situations and so on. And it's just like what an aesthetic. What an aesthetic. What an idea for a comic. I don't know how some of these things come to be. But then it was they had the Kickstarter was going on for the next couple of days for Volume 2. And if you followed that, you could get the Volume 2 print when it comes out, and then it's also it's the only way to get a print of Volume 1, which is out of print because it was kickstarted 6 years ago. And like these things just come and go in no time. And then it's like, oh, for $15 more, you can have a character in this like ensemble, like Kickstarter backer page where they draw everybody. And I'm like, I mean, I don't want to not have that. And so now I'm going to have a character. I don't know what they look like.
Did you choose the... You didn't even choose the animal?
No, well, as per last podcast, I chose a brown hyena.
Oh.
But that's all I really know. So there's gonna be a brown hyena named after me in the game. In the game, I call everything games. Why can't I stop?
Yeah, that's why I was confused. You said game
somewhere in the book. So that'll be neat.
Mm-hmm. So wait. So you had an input on the animal?
You do the Kickstarter, and then after it closes, you're like, "What do you want?" Oh, there was legit a text field for like link to your reference sheet for your OC. Like there's definitely that target audience. But I was just like, I don't know, draw a brown hyena.
Oh, wow.
I don't have a fucking character.
Make its ears cute, and that's all you have. That's all you need in a hyena. In my opinion, anyway.
But that's the path we've fallen down.
I don't know. I
This is my descent into madness slowly over the course of being a public persona.
Yeah, the art style is really cool.
I just really like comics.
It reminds me of a... Is this Disney art style, or is it something else?
Honestly, I mean, a lot of art in the world in general, and also anthropomorphic characters in particular, are often Disney inspired. Mm-hmm. Like, because that's just your exposure to that kind of stuff. It's like you either watch Disney shows like The Lion King and Robin Hood, I guess. I never liked Robin Hood.
Oh, Robin Hood is with animals as well, yeah.
Yeah, that's one that has like a fox and a bear. I don't remember any of it. I grew up watching Lion King a lot. That was like our go-to.
Is there like
weirdly, despite how dark it is, it was like our like, oh damn, we watched a scary movie with the kids. And now they have to be able to go to bed. So it was like our comfort food movie is we'd watch Lion King as like a reset after a movie that was going to make it hard to sleep. So we watched Lion King a lot of times, even though it's like fucked up Hamlet and Mufasa dies horribly and it's like a scarring movie and it's full of violence and nasty. And it's just a grim film.
Wait, you watched movies after you watched scary movies?
Yeah, like when I was really young.
Just if
I was really young and they're like, oh no, he's gonna... Like our kids aren't gonna be able to go to sleep. Like I was young and my brother's 2 years younger, so like it was all in our first house. It was all when I was below 10, so he would have been below 8. Like Lion King was for some reason our like reset, so that we would like forget about the scarring thing or whatever that might make us not go to bed. That was for some reason like the routine.
Weird.
And then you grew up with like Banjo-Kazooie and shit. And then the internet comes around and then it's like, you liking these characters? It's weird now. And to be fair, the furries made it weird.
It is. Yes. Anthropomorphized animals are not inherently a problem. It's people who find them to be sexually charged.
You constantly draw a weird line. And there's also like different levels. Like there's people that like just grow up and they... Like, oh, now adult themes are a part of my life. And also still the animal characters are part of my life. And they like mix the two a bit. But then there's like really confusing, strange things that you just find online sometimes. And you're like, okay, this is a lot. Admittedly, some of it's also stuff that's not like inherently furry. It's like I learned from Yakuza. It's like, oh, diaper people. This is...
Oh,
a thing people do, huh? Like, there's a mission that involves diaper people in one of the Yakuza games, and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah. I don't.
But it often feels like
I think they have a name for themselves.
I don't want to know. I don't need to know. But it often
there's
feels
probably
like
names for everything.
The fucking furries are like embracing it or spearheading it half the time with some of the weirder shit. Which, I mean...
there's probably...
Go ahead, I guess.
There's probably at least a faction,
but
right?
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I don't know. I have a... It's one of those kind of like... The tree's kind of bad, we have to start over. kind of things, where like anthropomorphized animals are a really great concept as a great vehicle to tell stories that are hard to do with humans. Because again, you're separating. Like, that's why Lion King works a lot better as a kids movie than like fucking Hamlet does. It's because like you can contextualize certain subjects a lot more accessibly using animals. Because except for the people that we know aren't good humans, most of everyone can empathize with animals. It's very difficult to like feel nothing for an animal. So you can put them in situations that are, precarious or painful or whatever, and you'll be like, oh my God. Whereas you can see a person and go like, fuck that guy, honestly. I don't really care.
I think the biggest impact is that it allows for you to simplify the issues. Like when Scar, I say this, I've never watched Lion King. When Scar, I'm terrible.
I never watched The Lion King, but here's my breakdown of my hot take about The Lion King.
Yeah, here's my hot take. When Scar throws Mufasa down the hill into the giraffes or whatever, the feeling that you get as a young child or even as an adult is simplified. It's like that thing is evil. That hyena or whatever. Is it a lion? It's a lion. Looks like a hyena.
Yeah, they're all lions.
So yeah, that lion is evil.
Looks like a hyena to you?
They have long faces. It's weird. I can only draw from memory.
The thing with no spots and a mane.
Yeah, it makes sense. I'm thinking a little bit better now. Yeah, but the point is that you simplify.
To identify animals, you better be prepared.
You simplify in your head because you know it's a story. Like, it's inherently part of a story because it's an animal like that. But if you have people doing the same things, then a more grown-up person might start asking questions about, all the real life questions that you ask when a situation like that happens, about, socioeconomics or upbringings or what it reflects on the overall community of what kind of person it is, all sorts of issues that are really, really completely erased when it's an animal. And then conversely, when you're a kid and you're watching that, and if you see a person doing that, those questions don't pop into your head because you're not mature enough. So it just may teach you the wrong lessons. And that's why things like queer representation being majorly done through villains is a problem. And of course, a result of, you guys probably know as well, but
the Hays Code.
The Hays Code, yeah. At least in the US. It was
the paradox of like, it was basically just, you weren't allowed, because of the self-policing Hays Code of how movies were produced, you weren't allowed to have any LGBT characters in your films at all, basically. But the one kind of loophole that you can get away with was that you could have the villains be queer coded, and oftentimes they were never confirmed to be gay, but every single mannerism and character trait was about like gay stereotypes and so on. And that was part of how you would. It's like a mixture of, like, some people would use it because they'd villainize the characters by making them seem effeminate or gay, because that was seen as like a negative trait. Although
it's a recurring loop, sort of.
Yeah. Although in some cases it was also people using it as like a loophole to essentially get like they could essentially get their representation in there by using the one tool available to them. And it's like, oh, I can make a gay character, but all I have to do is, just kind of like make them do something wrong and then have them get their comeuppance at the end, and therefore they're like punished for being a villain, but I get to have a gay character. And it's like, it's kind of back and forth based on the perspective of the particular like director and writer and so on. And sometimes the director and writer would have two very different ideas of what the point of the gay character was, because one would be villainizing them and one would be like, yes, I got him in. Because that was like the only way to get a character like that. But that's why so many villains are queer coded, and why especially like you have Scar and Ursula from Disney stuff, which was well past the Hays Code, but because they're repeating tropes of the entire medium that have been around for decades, that's why those characters are queer coded. And like Ursula's a drag queen and Scar is a gay man, like just very, very coded that way.
Wait, Scar is? Didn't he?
Yeah.
Didn't Scar try to get with Simba's mom?
Yeah, but every single part of his personality is queer coded. That's just really confirmed.
Well, they usually, it's not uncommon for characters like that to just have the throwaway. There's like a tropey name that you call it when Is the no homo? Yeah, it's the no homo scene where you're like, oh no.
It's
you know what I mean?
as Plinkett put it, everybody's got a case of the not gays.
That's the one.
They had to establish the scene of like, it's like every single character is seen like looking at or kissing a girl, and like, or like they describe the ship as a girl that they want to like grab the ship boobs of. Because you gotta establish everyone as straight, even if there's no woman to straight them with.
It's contagious. The straight.
Meanwhile, the shippers are like, I am more powerful than this. I know, like I can just call that a beard. There's no. There's so many layers.
I feel like,
yeah.
I don't know if I could think of Ursula as a more interesting character when they're not.
Who's Ursula?
The way they are. The witch, I guess, from Little Mermaid.
I mean, she's a well-realized character. She's really well done, but she's also explicitly based on. She's explicitly based on such a good character. Like, I don't even know who that is, but it's
famous drag queen, maybe.
Like, it's such a fun character. Like, I don't know. I guess I don't consider Disney villains like truly evil creatures. They're like cartoonishly evil, right?
Well, that's the simplification that I was talking about.
Ursula is literally a threat to nobody at this point, except for people who are like selfish. Like, who is Ursula harming? She doesn't actively like attack the fucking mermaid kingdom. She just lives in a fucking cave with 2 eels all day. Like, that's all she does.
What happened to that movie? Didn't she like kind of kill temporarily her dad or something?
I have no idea.
Yeah, because he tried to like reverse a spell or something. He was something
was happening in that.
Yeah, but he was willing to sacrifice himself to get his daughter back, and that was the problem. Like, but she wasn't actively. She didn't like show up to the palace and like shit all over it. She literally just stood in her little cave, and some people would come there like, "Oh, I want this one wish." And they'd be like, okay, but here's the contract, and it sucks, so don't break it. It's like, oh no, I broke it, and now I have to turn into a thumb in the ground.
A thumb?
Like,
what?
That's what she had. These like shriveled up looking fucking thumb looking people.
Oh no!
You don't remember that?
I watched it, as you might imagine.
Little I'm terrible.
Mermaid I think the only Disney movies, animated movies that I've watched are Frozen and Entangled.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, there's like a bunch of little
crazy.
snot
they do
goobers.
Look like.
I don't know about thumbs, but yeah.
Yeah,
they're goobers. Let me look up Ursula goobers.
They look like dried up thumbs. Look at that head.
I don't know. They look like what I imagine it looks like when you clean somebody's ear out. I'm not checking
ear canal.
Don't do that. No.
Anyway,
they're really gross.
This is like the worst.
They look
that's
the
worst she's ever
oil
done.
monster from Ferngully.
You haven't found the name for them yet?
Because
people could look up
Scrap Olips.
podcast
is a thing that's coming up. What the fuck? I'm just doing image searches. This thing just came up. It says sperms and conditions may apply, and it just has an image from that. I don't think this is related. What the fuck? Her collection of polyps hang around the main entrance to her lair. I guess they're called polyps.
Polyps. Oh, those are ocean things.
Gross.
Hold on. Let's
behavior
go to the
miserable. Fearful.
How do you mean gross? You love the ocean.
Those things are. I mean, those things are super gross.
They are very gross.
But either way, like that's her only threat to this underwater world is people sign shitty contracts with her, which is like, okay, sure, that's literally every lawyer in the planet.
Andrew's coming in here with the fucking Ursula did nothing wrong hot takes.
Oh, there's a lot of that.
I'm not saying she didn't do anything wrong. She did a lot of things wrong. I'm just saying she wasn't like she's not. The most evil creature ever spawned.
But there's a lot of that though. Because the thing with the simplification is that a lot of the times, and that's why people sympathize with characters like these, not just because of other issues. It's just that because the stories are simplified, sometimes you can just look at it from a different perspective. In a story that was like, oh, the good king was trying to save the princess, becomes this oppressive tyrant is just a jerk and needs to be
Oh yeah,
brought down a peg.
it's like how Scar is contextualized as the villain of Lion King, and like he is, but like, is Simba good? Is the fucking kingdom of weird carnivores that rule over this entire landscape of herbivores and are going to like what? They're all bowing to someone that's going to like consume them. Like, what is the good read of the intro?
The narrative
like,
here?
As a kid, you don't think about it very much, but when you're older, you're like, what is this? What is this world? How does this work out for anybody?
Yeah. That's definitely the case.
Maybe that whiplash explains some of the weird fascination with herbivore carnivore like stories that seem to keep happening lately, because of the fact that like all of us grew up with like the same Lion King movie, and we're like, hang on a minute, all those gazelles and elephants, why are they chill? Why are they chill with what's going on here? They're gonna get eaten.
What do you mean the price of
I think it's
housing
just an easy. I think it's just a really easy line to draw. Like one set of people is not going to get
the whole fucking movie is about some fucking like birthright dispute. Like, who gives a fuck?
That's very biological determinism.
Inheritance. How relatable.
I think there's actually a little bit more than just the birthright. There's like a balancing act. Like, the idea is that, you know, Simba's family weren't tyrants. They wouldn't just eat everything that walked.
They weren't?
But Scar was like, fuck it, eat everything all at once right now. And then like the fucking jungle basically died. That was like the whole crux of the story. That is like some creepy like race essentialism kind of going on too.
That's the issue.
I mean, there's a scene where Scar's literally sitting on a mountain and all of the hyenas are Nazi like walking through the goddamn jungle. Like, come on, guys.
The coding of the hyenas is like, oh no.
That's the coding.
This is a bummer.
That's the coding. It's not in the text.
Like, they're all framed as being Nazis.
But you don't
also
understand.
Specifically, it's like, oh, lions. The lions are good, and they're the good, rightful, holy leaders of society that will do no wrong. But you feel that fucking hyenas be in charge, they will destroy everything. So I guess you should just exterminate all hyenas as a race, apparently, because they cannot be allowed to thrive.
Tried.
And
they put them in the boneyard where there's literally no food.
You look at all these, you're like, these are worrying themes, actually.
And the worst
thing is that an
is
entire race can be wrong, and you should never disrupt the hierarchy of the current inheritance structure and power. That's the moral of Lion King. Good movie.
The worst thing is they literally pull the trope, the hyenas are the real Nazis thing with the subtext.
I like how the thing that Disney has in common with Dark Souls is that the most dangerous force in the world is gravity. Because like they never, Disney keeps writing narratives where people have to die, but they never want to like stab somebody and slowly watch the life drain from their eyes. It's always like yeet, and like it's like every fucking villain falls off a cliff over and over and over again. Sometimes it's into a fire cliff or just another cliff.
Do you remember Snow White?
No.
Snow White also falls?
They threw a fucking boulder on her. They literally just threw a boulder on the fucking witch, dude. Like, all the dwarves are just like yeet, and then the rock just fell on top of her and she died. I was like,
that's how they killed her?
That's fucking brutal, dude. That's a brutal way to murder somebody, man.
Crushing is like one of the most violent and horrifying deaths you could think of, essentially. But it's visually,
besides drowning, I don't want to go any other way.
Like, visually, it's very clean. So you're like, oh yeah, just crush them under a boulder.
You can't see anything.
They're there for 1 second, they're gone for the next second. It's just a clean dismissal.
If you want to be like cartoonish about it, but also like if you splatter somebody, it ain't clean.
No, but in the cartoons, it's always
messy
just like,
affair.
Like, wow, they got crushed. Wow, they got yeeted. I got a kick out of that.
I think Ursula got didn't Ursula get electrocuted to death?
She died. I don't even remember.
No idea.
I don't remember if she died. I think I'm pretty sure she got electrocuted.
I'm thinking about the turnabout of Lion King, of like how first good guy fall off cliff and die, then bad guy fall off cliff and die. Morality, and like that's the two major deaths of the movie, essentially, besides the world or whatever. But like, I haven't watched any of the Disney remakes because I'd like making taking all the fun of a of a.
Oh God!
What happened?
Oh, I forgot. No, the prince drives a boat into her. He literally just drives a fucking boat and stabs her, like impales her in the stomach with the front of the boat. Jesus Christ!
Oh my God.
That's intense. He literally ripped her intestines apart by just jamming a boat inside of her.
Do you think that the animators...
Look, he went through her. The boat is through her.
Do you think...
Oh my God.
Do you think that the animators sit down before animating and being like, okay, so how is she gonna die? I know. Let's impale her with the boat and cut her in half.
You presumably figure out what's going to happen in the movie before you animate it. So yes.
Well,
yeah.
Before anything, like the most important thing you have to do is figure out how you're going to kill somebody, because it's very easy to know if that's not going to work. You can just walk up to a guy and there's a fucking guy sitting in a room in this fucking giant building and no one talks to him except this one time. And they ask, can I put this on a child's cartoon? And he will go, fucking no, you can't. And that will be it. And they'll go back and they'll change it. And they're like, nope, the censor said it's going to make it a PG rating. And that's no dice.
There's been a lot of like horrifying deaths in children's cartoons as a result of trying to censor death, essentially, and making it less horrifying.
That makes more sense. Yeah.
Fucking Who Framed Roger Rabbit has two of the most horrifying like deaths, where like the shoe gets like is like screaming and writhing, and gets the cartoon shoe is like getting melted in paint thinner by this guy that's like fucking Back to the Future guys just lowering him in. And I think Back to the Future guy gets literally steamrolled, like completely flattened while screaming and writhing under a steamroller. And you're like, oh my God. But I was thinking about the Disney cliffs because I was at my dad's house like a few months ago, and they just randomly had the Lion King no, not Lion King. Jungle Book remake. One of the downsides of making these all live action remakes is that all the animal ones look like the same movie, especially if I've never watched any of them yet because I don't want to. But I was like, oh, there's a bunch of wolves and there's a tiger on this cliff. That can't end well. It's a cliff in a Disney movie. And like seconds later, the fucking tiger just digs in claws deep into the fucking wolf and just yeets him off the cliff and just silently, like that character's just out of the movie. And I'm like, he seemed kind of important. That's like a really traumatically abrupt and brutal fucking death. The camera didn't even like do the Mufasa Scar camera angle of looking down as they slow motion fall, like to be sad for a moment about like the bad thing that's happening. It's just like silently and abruptly just dispatched this like seemingly main character just right off the cliff without even cutting to follow them going off the cliff. And you're like, oh my God, that was cheap.
Oh yeah, the Tarzan guy got hung.
Oh no!
Oh yeah, it was like wasn't it like slightly implied.
The Tarzan
like,
villain because he was like falling and the vines were wrapping around him.
Yeah, that
and
is
then
like
it's like it's thunder and lightning in the background, so it cuts to
I've seen that scene.
You can't. The camera's following him falling, and then it just falls to the ground, but he doesn't arrive, and then you hear like a. And then it thunderbolts, and you can see him hanging in the background with like the shadow. Like, fuck, dude. As a kid, you probably don't notice it because it's just a fucking quick second and you don't know what suicide is. So you have no concept of what just happened to this guy. But
it's
like,
hardcore.
You watch as an adult, you're like, did that guy fucking get hung? Oh my God. Like, that guy's dead.
Especially because accidental hangings are like, for kids specifically. I remember being a kid and every time I was playing with
But again, as a kid, you're not noticing the sound that you're hearing is the sound of someone's neck snapping. You have no concept of what that means. Yeah. But as an adult, you're like,
they probably didn't put a neck snapping in. If anything, it was like the vine tension or something. Like vine noises.
Well, yeah, but that's the that's supposed to be the sound of like
that'd
the
be
neck
like a step too far. I think would be actually including like a neck snap in your children's movie.
No, I'm saying that's used as the sound of neck snapping is the sound of of rope snapping.
They put the sound of neck snapping. They just didn't do a very good job of making it realistic. Basically.
Yeah, I'm saying that they put the sound of vines like snapping tight, but I'm saying that is also that's the folly for making the sound of a neck snap is using rope and snapping it. That's so it's like it's a double. Like it's like a twist. Like they're not putting the sound of someone's neck snapping. They're putting the sound of the vine snapping, which happens to also be used
like the sound of,
as a common replacement for the sound of neck snapping.
Like the sound of swords clashing is just some pens in a thing.
because your neck doesn't snap like bones. It's
No,
like,
no, there is one bone that breaks when hanging occurs. There's one specific bone that breaks, and it's not all the time, but most of the time, and it's usually used to see if somebody was indeed hanged or hung. Wait, which one is it? Hung is for the balls. Hanged is for the neck. Right.
It's a good way to
I know
remember
English. I'm good.
Hug is for the balls. I don't think it refers to the balls. No. Almost.
Oh no, it's for the other neck. Then
but...
it's both necks. Then, okay. So so hanged. When somebody is hanged, 90% of the time there's one bone.
Wow, you're hanged like a horse.
Yeah. I knew I wasn't saying it right. I thought it was for the balls. I'm sorry.
No, it's not the balls, but it's close to the balls.
Yes, I understand. I understand the logistics of it.
Usually, it's usually not like when I talk about dudes, it's usually not a balls measuring contest.
I've never used this verbiage in common conversation.
They would need much more sophisticated measuring units and techniques.
No, you don't. Just do a squat.
I just mean like that's like more confusing shape to have to measure to get like any kind of conclusive thing out of like what the fuck measuring balls.
Lowest
the topics
point.
we've gotten today. Did I say striped hyena or brown hyena earlier?
You said brown hyena.
Okay.
It said brown hyena.
I keep mixing them up. I was like slightly like, did I say striped hyena because they have stripes on accident again?
Anyway,
they don't have stripes.
The point I was trying to make.
Brown hyenas have stripes, but striped hyenas are all stripes. But I meant brown hyena.
Oh, yeah.
The point I was trying to make is that Disney movies using animals makes sense. It's a good use.
You get almost entirely examples of humans dying horribly.
I did. For context, in Hunchback, the main villain dies by falling off a ledge too. So it is a trope enough.
That said, in
Hunchback's the horrifying one. That's one of the darkest Disney movies, but also has like the guy falling screaming into like a flame vortex. Which like
he basically falls.
Which like he was
hell.
one of the more distressing villains too. You're like, this guy's a fucking creep.
Yeah, a little bit too close to home. He's like just human. He's just a normal human makes it
guy.
Bad.
Like that's the problem.
That's what makes it bad when you go and watch Alien.
Yeah,
you don't be like, this thing.
But the problem, I don't like that there's this huge cancerous tumor attached to anthropomorphic animals.
I think
that is just like all the sexual stuff.
I think
because it's like it is. I don't know.
It's actually kind of crazy how old the animal stuff is, like societally. You have like the Aesop's fables and so on. And, like these are like they're all animals behaving with agency and dialogue and teaching lessons and so on. And there's like some other one. There was a what was it? Because Stephanie was talking about how they're replacing Splash Mountain to be Princess and the Frog because, and I didn't know this for a long time, but Splash Mountain is based on Song of the South.
Song of the South. Yeah.
Unfortunate.
Brer Rabbit and Brer Rabbit is from the song.
I think it was just the animals from it, which was like maybe the less worrying.
Yes.
I've never seen Song of the South, but like she says that like she was talking about that.
No, Brer Rabbit's a problem.
She was talking about how like I guess the animals themselves from Song of the South were like not Aesop's fables, but like a different like series of ancient like animal like morality tales and so on. It's like there's so many versions of those.
I believe it's called The Tale of Brer Rabbit. Like that, I believe that's the source.
It's such like it's a
completely different story, which is why
to represent your stories this way.
And so that's what the Splash Mountain is more closely tied to that story than it is Song of the South, for very obvious reasons, because that's the one they don't talk about. Splash Mountain was made way after Song of the South came out and was a problem for people.
I was kind of amazed
I got a great idea
for how long I would hear about like the Zippity Doo-Dah song and Splash Mountain as concepts, and just I probably encountered them dozens, if not hundreds of times without any mention that they had anything to do with Song of the South. And so I just
Zippity Doo-Dah is...
I just thought they existed.
Song of the South?
Yeah.
Yes. He sings it with the bird.
That's like the famous use of that song.
I think I've seen... Yeah,
it's
I think I've seen something
that
about
movie, and it's like, oh, I didn't know that forever.
I've seen Song of the South. God, I grew up with it.
Jeez.
Like, I watched it multiple times because it was great. Like, the little animals, they're all having a story and stuff. You like, as a kid, you don't care about the context of, like, the guy being a slave. Like, that's, I didn't even know what that, like, I had no idea that was happening.
Yeah, that's the same thing.
All my childhood brain ingested was the animals.
That's definitely part of the problem.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying, like,
but it's same thing like with the
if you strip,
go ahead, sorry.
If you take the movie, you cut out all of the live action portions and you go like, oh, these are all problematic. You chop it all up and you kind of fill in the blanks with more animal stuff. You'd have a fine movie.
I wonder how many of the animal parts are worrying too.
Yeah.
The story of Brer Rabbit is a worrying story. It's not like, it's not great. It's a story about a really shitty person doing really shitty things to people who don't deserve to be treated really shitty. And like, it rewards him for it until it doesn't. And then again, at the end of the story, it's like he basically just dies. Like, like Brer Rabbit just dies because he's a shitty person and no one goes to help him.
I wonder when I with some of these old media things, I kind of wonder like if which racism things are going to be like are going to feel relevant or like, I don't know, impactful versus which ones are like confusing. Because like there's like a certain brand of old racism where you're like, I'm confused. I need somebody to explain to me what's going on here because what the fuck? Like what?
Being able to identify it is difficult if you're not the victim of racism in that way. Like things, like even simple things like the.
Like I was just thinking that like David J. Bradley made a video recently about the Marx Brothers, right? That's the people. If I remember correctly. Marx Brothers. Yes, those are real people. Okay, that's where like Groucho is from, which is the famous like the Groucho glasses, where people have this like disguise glasses, where it's glasses and a big nose and a mustache.
Yeah.
That was the Marx Brothers, and like of all things, they had this just incredibly strange thing where I think across multiple movies they had a running gag that was. It was weirdly racist, but also in a confusing way where it's like one of them was a musician, I think, and he'd like hop into some like minority community and play the flute or whatever, and everyone would be enraptured with them, and he'd instantly become like this like deity like figure to their entire society because he like played a few notes on a flute or something. And I'm like, I don't understand what's happening in this. I know something's wrong here, but I'm like, I don't even know the motivation here. I don't know why it was supposed to be funny in context, but I also don't know. It's also such a bizarre form of racism that I can't fully understand what I'm even looking at right now, because it's not like any of the tropes that have persisted. It's just a really, you're just looking at it and you're like, I don't know why have you done this to me? Why have you put this in front of me? Yeah. I don't know how to process what's happening.
Yeah, I think that's where it's really, really an indictment of whoever came up with that, because if it doesn't serve the purpose of being funny or telling a story, then it's just saying hi to other racist people who like that. It's like it's when it's really obvious.
But if it's such an obscure form of racism,
well, I mean,
like
today it's an obscure form of
serving at that point. You're just creating a weird nugget of
like I don't think it was obscure at the time. I think it was the kind of thing where like it was just kind of like a trope being repeated uncritically at the time, and like, but like why and how did this happen? And like that's the really confusing part, because it's like it's one of those things that were through a modern lens. It's completely incomprehensible what was happening.
Yeah.
Like, am I supposed to think that black people are like snakes? Like that one recurring cartoon trope where somebody would play a flute at a vase and a snake rises out because it has magic hold over them? Like, is that what this is it that but with black? Is that what they're
Isn't
going
that Middle
for?
Eastern?
Well, that's
Isn't
what I mean.
that also
Is that like is it like
snake-
are we supposed to like
snake
is there like a
charmer?
weird outdated form of racism where
But
people thought
remember-
just a flute would just like tame them? Like what the fuck is this?
Well, but remember, there's also the Pied Piper. That's like a thing.
Wasn't he like a child napper or something? I don't remember the Pied Piper.
Yeah.
Child napper? Like a kid?
Yeah, the Pied
Doesn't he, like, play a
Piper
flute,
would play
and
a
then he
flute, and the
slender
flute
mans
would
a bunch of
cause
children
people
away and
to.
they'll die or something.
Oh.
Yeah. Yes.
So not good.
So like it could just be that. I don't know. It
I mean, if you don't, if you can't,
I
if
don't-
if somebody mentions like an old story character, and you don't know what it is, you can usually just guess that it's a child predator. That's like most like historical stories, because it's like step one of making story for in this kind of format is as a morality tale is like you're just trying to make your kids not get eaten or taken or go off cliffs or whatever. Like you're just desperately trying to come up with metaphors for your kids to not die.
Disney does definitely a very good job trying to not get the kids to go off cliffs. That's definitely their priority right there.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, that's
That
number one. It's number one thing to teach you in Disney movies. Cliffs are really dangerous.
Do you know how in other movies every time somebody dies by falling off a cliff, later on they show up? Aha! You thought I was dead. In Disney, that never happens.
That's a soap opera.
Yeah, it's exactly. Like you die by falling off a cliff. I didn't die. No, in Disney, no, he died. He died.
I like that this wrapped back around to explaining all of Disney in one fell swoop. That wasn't even my intention, but it's like, yeah, like so many Disney movies function as, yo, kids, cliffs are bad.
Yeah.
Hey.
Did they?
Yeah, I don't know. Does Disney have a general? I feel like Disney doesn't have a general theme either, though.
No,
They're like, if you look story to story, they all have weird messages. Like, what's the fucking message of Little Mermaid?
Did anybody fall off a cliff?
Abandon your family, follow your dreams. Like, what the fuck? What kind of weird message is that? She literally just says, fuck being a mermaid. I don't want to do it. I'm going to go live with the first man I find and get away from my controlling father. Thanks, Disney. I guess I'll keep that in mind next time I
Do you think that's I never watched it, but I've seen other reads that are a little bit more obscure and metaphorical than that.
What is fucking Hunchback of Notre Dame? Sorry that you're ugly, but that doesn't mean people have to hate you. But you still have to be alone. Like you can't be around people, but they won't hate you. That's unfair. Like, what is Hunchback of Notre Dame's fucking message at all? It's literally just a guy who lives in a guy who lives in a fucking bell tower who rings this stupid fucking bell, is a ugly, hideous monster, and everyone keeps him up there. But one girl, a person that is of a type of people who are persecuted constantly by every European nation, comes in at
Roma.
Yeah,
Roma.
I don't know what the word is. Yeah. I don't want to say any of them because every time I say one, I imagine it's probably wrong and racist.
Yeah, they specifically
know who they are because they're the people that always get persecuted.
The ones that Khajiit were based on.
Yeah, she shows up and goes like, "Oh, hey, ugly guy."
I think Khajiit are North African Muslim people, specifically.
I don't know. Have you seen their voice?
Yeah. I don't know. It's the tropes all mixed up into one.
Yeah, I played.
It's just a girl who.
Fucking Obra Dinn. I'm bad at guessing this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
Obra Dinn is great.
The average comment of Obra Dinn was basically be more racist. You're not guessing people's races good enough.
Oh yeah.
Like, what's the message? What's the message of Lion King?
I think
you deserve whatever you like. You deserve whatever your dad
I went
tells
into
you
the
do.
mess that is, where it's like, what is the morality here? Why is everybody cool with the
what is morality of Snow White?
The problem with the morality of Disney movies in general is that by the time they finish the movie, any bit of the original script is already completely recontextualized. Like
not even just that, but they're also adapting ancient stories and then like sanding off some of the edges there. And sometimes the edge was the point, and also sometimes the entire point of the story is wildly irrelevant by now. And outdated to begin with, and so adapting it is just a weird choice.
Like in Mulan, the latest one.
That's what's so noticeable about well, in Mulan's case, they straight up failed to adapt their own movie.
They failed to adapt. Yeah,
it's not that the original movie's outdated. It's that they completely failed to remake their own film. But that's what's so noticeable about a movie like Zootopia is that suddenly you're like, oh, suddenly Disney's movie is making like a new film that's actually modern, and it does have morals and a point and metaphor that it actually is relevant to society, instead of just being like the 17th regurgitation of the same story, getting more unrecognizable every time until you don't even know what goes on anymore. Like, I don't even like, is it better or worse to do the version of the story where the Little Mermaid turns into sea foam and dies at the end? Like, I don't know what's the moral of any of the versions of the story.
Is that the original one? That sounds awful.
Yeah, that's what happens to her. I don't remember
my
the
argument
context,
is
though.
I don't think Disney movies have a moral. I think they are just stories they are just stories that tell a story.
The driving point,
like, there's a lesson I guess you maybe can learn from, like, don't be like that guy, but it's not like they're not telling you anything at the end of it.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Like,
but
they
are ironically almost exclusively adaptations of morality tales.
Yeah, but seriously, tell me who Snow White is. Who the fuck is this character? What is it? Because she just shows up, goes, I like singing. Oh, now I have to run, and I ate an apple. Now I slept the whole movie. Like, fuck. All right, cool. Who's the main character? The dwarves? Like, what? They're victims here. They're like more victims than Snow White. They just had like a random person show up on their doorstep. They had to deal with like a fucking witch and like a hunter and poison apples. Like, they had to deal with a whole bunch of shit. Poor guys. And at the end, they don't get anything. She just gets a prince and leaves off in her happy life. And they're just like, fuck, thanks for paying for your share of the food. Appreciate it. That was cool.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the abrupt edit in the podcast where Discord fucked up for like 10 minutes straight. And I think we fixed it. So conversation's pretty dead, and we have to start over from scratch at the moment. I don't know. What am I thinking? What am I thinking about this time? What?
We have a question?
Yeah, we have some questions, I guess. The
question is, do you have them at hand?
What is at hand? It's on the internet.
That's not the hand.
But also, I've been reading a lot of indie comics lately, because that's what we were talking about earlier. To some extent, that's what spawned this whole discussion. Weirdly, what is it? What is the ACAB comic place called? Shit.
I don't know.
Shit.
A
San
comic
Francisco Indie Comics.
Oh.
What is that place? Silver Sprocket. There we go. Was it Stephanie turned me on to Silver Sprocket, which is an indie it's an indie comic printing place that has a store in San Francisco that she orders from and so on. And it's especially indie. Like, they sell like pamphlet comics, basically, that are like 20 pages of just like paper folded and stapled in the middle, and it's like they're like 10 inches. No, they're probably like 6 to 8 inches tall, like postcard size. You just page through them and so on. And they just have like a really even pricing structure. Like on the back of them, they just have like $5 written on it manually. And it's like buy this at the store for $5. I want to go. I kind of want to go to the store in San Francisco when the plague is gone. That'd be kind of nice. But
when the plague is gone,
discovered that place and just ordered a bunch of like $5 comics and just kind of had some fun with that. Like the
good luck.
Good luck with the plague being gone, or with going to San Francisco.
No,
because Andrew hates.
Good luck going to San Francisco.
That's the downside. But I also want to go to the Okonomiyaki place, which is also in San Francisco, and I want to try it. So one of these days, I'll make another expedition there, preferably with someone else driving, because boy, do I feel like I'm panicking the entire time whenever I try to drive in San Francisco, which you experienced when we went to that Zelda escape room.
Yeah.
And I turned into what was, I think, technically oncoming traffic, but there was no one there. but it was like because we had to awkwardly turn down a hill, and it wasn't clear which turn was the turn. And I'm like, oh, I think we're on the other side of the road. Like San Francisco's a nightmare of rapidly switching between like 1-way and 2-lane roads and up and down hills at 45-degree angles and shit. You're like, I can't tell which way to go.
Yeah, it's not very well built.
Even and I know it's not just me, because I've been there with my mom driving before, and she ran a red light because they're like, oh yeah, whoopsie doodle, surprise, the lights are over here now, and like it's like this now, the lights in the weird, instead of like a bar that overhangs over the lanes the way they normally do, it was like in a weird little pillar in the middle of the divider that sticks up vertically and is yellow for some reason, and like fucking with you on like the format of what you think lights look like. It is a nightmare, just all around.
It's there's a lot of, I hate the inconsistency of roads in major cities.
I got a kick out of just the weird stuff you find when stuff just has like a low barrier to publishing. What was it? Stephanie had a copy of something called 1 Million Tiny Fires, where there's a lesbian couple that lives out in like a farm, and they're trying to start their new life there, and it's supposed to kind of rekindle things and hope to like fix the issues they've been having. And one of them, the one that was kind of being aggressive and moody and a problem, was suddenly like doing everything right and perfect, and aren't they great? But they just seem to kind of vanish into the fields at night and be covered in blood and so on. And it's like just because it's because like at the beginning of the book, like that person like essentially like it was like the beginning of Men in Black, where like the farmer discovers the crashed like meteor or whatever and gets possessed, and so it's like oh, they're behaving better because they're not the same person, and this is like a weird like body horror nightmare thing. I read Sleepwalking, which is a bunch of anthropomorphic animals that are like millennials that are basically just they're basically animals for basically no reason. They're just a bunch of kids, and they're at a party, and the party sucks, and it's just party purgatory, and none of them can escape, essentially. What is it? Stephanie got Lorna, which is it has a similar like horror comedy vibe that some of the Junji Ito stories have, where it follows this mischievous, violent girl, and the story like is sillier but also darker than expected from moment to moment, and you're like, oh, okay, someone's just dead now. But it definitely feels like improvising and just going just like each volume is just like feels like it was just iterated on from the previous one, just kind of on a whim and all that. I got the I think I got the 3 existing. I got a You Can Try Again, which is about this. It's about the teleporter problem, basically, or specifically the soma thing with the multiple bodies, where there's a girl whose job is to record life experiences for people to be played back as a video, kind of like the things that are in Cyberpunk 2077, which itself is taken from Strange Days, Catherine Bigelow movie from the 90s, where you record experiences and can play them back. But like what she does is she like goes diving into the deep, and she chronicles like the deep sea and stuff, and often gets eaten while she's down there. So it's like distressing Subnautica horror stuff for me. We're like, no, crossed with the it's like both at once. It's the deep sea horrors of Subnautica crossed with the who am I and am I even me anymore horrors of Soma at the same time, because she goes down there and she does actually die, but she has a backup each time, so she like remembers everything. She's like continually being backed up, so she remembers everything right before she dies. So to some extent she keeps doing this job of documenting this horror because of the fact that like that the edge is obviously taken off if you never remember the worst part each time, and then other people keep experiencing those parts of that. That's called You Can Try Again. And what is it? I bought the trilogy of books of Dayglow A-Hole, which is this guy. There's a porn addicted guy in the post-apocalypse, and there's literally like a fucking like storm of like porn mags that goes across the landscape, and he's trying to chase it down because if he has like a massive like porn spree, he thinks maybe he can like just like it's like the opposite of going cold turkey. He thinks he can like overload so hard that he'll cure himself.
Yeah.
And that's not actually the plot of that's like the starting context, but it's like this weird post-apocalypse bizarre setting that where each volume has like a different plot to it. It just keeps getting weirder. Like there's one where he transforms into a bug, and this porn star from that like the first page is a porn star that is about to peg someone, and the apocalypse happens and she dies and everyone dies and so on, of like whatever the fuck happened that ended the world. And for some reason in this chapter the protagonist turns into a cockroach, and then out of a gaping wound in his body, his guts, like gooey gut stuff, come out and congeal into somehow a reincarnation of that porn star. And she's like really wholesome and supportive, but then she ultimately decides that he's not savable, and he's just got too many complexes and problems, and she abandons him even though she was grown out of him. And I'm just like, what the fuck? How do you...
Wow.
These are both like
brutal.
On one hand, like a lot of these are going places and they are a trip, but also I'm like, how do you even land on this idea and then commit to it long enough to draw it all out and then publish it? And I'm happy you did, but also what is this? But on the somewhat more established indie comics scene, I just finished Thirsty Mermaids and Softies, which I tweeted about. If you want to see preview pictures on my Twitter, I was recommending those because like those are both really nice. They're both like 200-page things and not instead of like little pamphlets, but really good art and just nice heartfelt character interactions and all that. Softies is about a 13-year-old girl who is the last remaining human because Earth just explodes. It's just gone.
Right.
And she's the one person left. She was in a convenient blast-proof terrarium and then gets abducted by aliens and then just kind of goes from planet to planet experiencing what alien stuff is while seemingly not really being bothered by the fact that her Earth exploded, but maybe that's not entirely true. And it's just a really good, just really good comedy and character writing, and just like a really fun cast of characters that is like, you have like some regulars that are like the crew that she joins, and then some that are like the ensemble of each individual like planet that each chapter takes place in. And you just have fun rotating with all these different characterizations and scenarios. And then it has a gut punch coming. And then Thirsty Mermaids is 3 mermaids who are thirsty, and that they would salvage old booze from like shipwrecks, and they want more, but they keep like losing it. They're like, I have an idea. We'll use magic to become humans. So this actually goes back to the Little Mermaid discussion from earlier, because it's essentially like it's like a different take on some of the Little Mermaid idea. But these three mermaids become humans, and so you have a lot of the fun like fish out of water comedy because they don't understand human society. Like there's literally a page where it says like, and then she explained capitalism to them, and they're like, what? That's horrible. And they're like trying to get them to understand that they need to get jobs while they're stuck here and so on. But there's like 3 really fun characters amongst the mermaids, and also it has an emotional gut punch coming. They both have a lot of emotional sincerity and in a few devastating scenes, but also are both really funny, wacky adventures that are just fun to look at art-wise too. And I'm like, this is good. I'm continuing to be an avid comic collector that doesn't care about superheroes, and it turns out there's so much that you just have to look a little harder because it's not being pushed that hard.
When you're not constrained by the thought or the worry about whether things sell or whatever, or if they appease the wills of the publisher, it's just so much better stuff happens. I follow a bunch of comic creators on Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
And usually I basically go on a binge every once in a while. I find, I want to see what this person is up to. And then I go to their website and it's like, oh, look at all these pages.
Yeah,
I can't name a single one of them, though.
Was a gamble, which I often take. But I knew Mermaids was going to be good because I already read their previous book, Snapdragon, which was also fantastic. That was about a little girl that finds a witch in the woods, and they're like, please teach me taxidermy and stuff. I had to recommend it to. I had a page where I'm like, this is perfect, Stephanie, you need to read this, because there's this whole page where like it shows the main character as a little girl like wanting to rent like a book on like taxidermy and animal bones and stuff like that, and the librarian was like, oh, wouldn't you like a nice little book for little girls? And then the mom is the one doing the transaction, and she like looks back and forth between the two of them and kind of grimaces and is like, she'll be taking the book. Like it's like this nice supportive like, no, you don't get to like decide that she has to like follow through the stereotypes and so on. It's like she cares about bones, this is her interests, and we're going to support this. And it's like, oh, this is wholesome and nice.
Yeah that sort of stuff is really important, I think, for all people, because on the one hand there's the kids growing up that might see that, and that's very important. Yeah, but then there's the parents that see that as well. I think the journey of obviously I don't speak from experience, but I think the journey from what I understand, it's about it's all new when you're teaching a kid. So it's a reference point is also very important, I think.
Yeah,
for how to,
and Softies, Thirsty Mermaids, and Snapdragon are also all just sprinkled with like LGBT characters and elements. And like every now and then it's important to the plot, but a lot of it is just like, sometimes characters are gay, and that's like, and it's not like another like, I guess Last of Us 2 situation where it's like this character is trans and they will be tortured for their transness and so on. And it's like there's that whole complicated conversation of like, it's like a lot of people think that character was good representation for a trans character, but also they're exhausted by every trans character being tortured for being trans in every story, where it's like it comes like the thought process comes from a good intentioned place, but it's just exhausting because it's like having every movie with black people be about the suffering of black people, and it's like that discussion has a place, but also like you want to have hope and just feel just normal too, and like that's always a welcome thing. In fact, as a fun little moment, there's I think in both Softies and Thirsty Mermaids, there's a moment where it's they kind of just like how do you put it, like it's not like a grand reveal so much as like there's like a line of dialogue in both of them where when you read into it you're like, oh, hang on a minute, that character's trans, oh hey, and like that's neat. And it's not like they're not like making like an announcement about it, because that's not what the story is about, and like that's not what the characters, like that's not even what the conversation is about necessarily. But you have the one moment of like oh, that character named themselves, and they even said like when I
put the dots together,
like you literally have the line like when I realized I was a dude, and it's like, oh, that's why they're named that, because they literally named themselves, because it's like a slightly out there name, and you're like, oh, okay. And there's a character, just neat moments like that.
There's not a whole lot of characters like that in games that I've played, but I remember Sunless Skies. There's a couple of characters like that. There's one in specific that is like that, where he's just talking about his binder all of a sudden. And if you like, binder is such a specific term.
Oh yeah, like the number of people who played Dream Daddy and didn't know that binder bod referred to like them being trans men using binders.
Yeah, because it can mean other things, on anything that binds, I suppose. But in the context, it was, for somebody who knows what it is, it was easy to tell, and it's just a little detail.
Yeah,
and
or
there's another character, but I forget.
Dragon Age Inquisition. Not Harding. Harding was the dwarf, I think. Iron Bull's like first officer is a trans character, I think. If I remember correctly.
I haven't played it yet. I will be starting the second Dragon Age pretty soon. Never played it.
I liked it at the time. When everyone hated it, I was a little confused by that.
I think,
but it certainly has issues.
I don't know. For me, my perception was always that it's to focus on combat in a way that, like, it's action combat focused. And
there might be too much combat, but that was also a problem in Origins.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Exactly.
Some people hate that it's all in one town, but I thought that was really refreshing and cool because it's like, oh, it's not just about saving the world for once. We have like different problems to learn about and contextualize, and we're telling a different story, multiple different stories, even because it's split into 3 acts of that are essentially like the hardships of one town. I love that part of it, but that's good. I can also see why people don't like the fact that like it will just recycle the same maps. Like you'll be doing story missions that are side quests that take you places, and those side quests will take you to what is essentially like those random encounter maps that happen in Origins when you're on the map. Like you travel from place to place and a random encounter happens that makes you fight in like some field or whatever. Like you will explore like the same cave and the same mansion like 5 times because they just have you run through it forward and backwards like Destiny DLC. And that's disappointing. But at that point I was relatively used to the idea that RPGs have repetitive content and recycle stuff a lot, and you just kind of hope that the story and characters and gameplay gets past that. But no, I think I preferred 2 over 1 at the time, but I don't know if that would still be true.
Yeah, people keep saying that the story itself of the second one is better than the first. But the problem with the story of the first one is that it isn't delivered, or at least I feel that it isn't delivered with an intent of you being like, ooh, what a twist, or look at this character, I never saw that coming, or whatever. It's more with the intent of, what an RPG should be, which is, oh, look at what I can do now. Alistair, you've got it coming. And
most of Dragon Age Origins is like it's Star Wars. It's like it's the hero's journey just as a template, and then they just kind of don't do anything to surprise you along the way. So it mostly is just like they're focusing. It's like just trying to successfully launch a franchise.
I think that's because they were trying to focus on the choices. There's a lot of options later on, specifically, not early on, which is interesting because usually it's the other way around. Like early in the game, you get all the options, and then later on, it's all railroaded. But in Dragon Age Origins, it's kind of the other way around, and I like it.
The closer you get to your destiny, the more railroaded the story is. But at the beginning, you can literally beat 8 different people.
No, I think in the Age of Dragon, in Dragon Age Origins, it's the other way around. Like with Morrigan and with Alistair and with the other guy that Alistair doesn't like, and no need for spoilers. And then after the whole thing, it feels like there's so many options later on that change the game completely. Whereas early on, it's just side quests. Later on, it's because it's all about the main quest line. It feels. Honestly, I thought
is so cool and ambitious though that Origins opens with like 8 different 1 hour intros that completely they're not massively deep with content, but all of them are tied to either locations or major story elements that are going to matter in the main campaign, and that's going to make that location feel especially relevant to you and more personal, and that'll recontextualize your choices there, both because it's directly tied to you and because you know more about that kind of place and there's more weight to it.
I thought it was a brilliant game, and honestly, it's my favorite BioWare game of all that I've played so far. And I've only played the second Mass Effect and the first. Yeah.
The first Mass Effect's my favorite BioWare game.
I thought on a second playthrough, because I played it once or twice when it came out. I think I might have only played it once. I don't remember.
I think I've played it like 5 times.
And on a recent playthrough, I feel the story. I think that they don't understand the role of some of their. I wish it was a little bit more Star Trek than it is Star Wars, in the sense of the understanding of the political nature of the game, because it doesn't have any understanding of that. It's so surface level on the Taurians, for example, and their relationship with the Geth, and is it the Taurians and the Geth, or which one is?
It's the Quarians.
Quarians, that's the one.
The Turians have history with humans because that was the first contact war.
Yeah. Oh, that one is also a pile of traps. Pile of spikes. You know what I mean? So it's tricky.
I just love the density of like when you first get to the Citadel.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And you just get lost in it. But also like there's so much context, and you walk over into the lounge and you just meet like the Elcor and the God, what is it called? The Volus and the Elcor, and why they're both just like the grudge they have against you, and like the Volus is just being a little shit to you, and the Elcor is like trying to mediate and be like, condescending dismissal, and he's like, and you're getting this great fully fleshed out world that's like, it's like it
it's
might
great.
Not, it's not like Disco Elysium levels of like perfectly thought out and great, but it's like it's so good for RPGs and sci-fi video games in general, of like having all these different relationships between different groups and just seeing how thought out and cohesive the world around you is. And like that's really it still is like the gold standard in many ways compared when I go on to play a game like Elex or Wasteland 3, and you get to like, okay, here we go, go to an area, we're going to go to an area, and like here's your new faction, and here's like how these different people interact, and like how much meat is there, and how much is that going to color the context of each quest I do here, and how much is this going to feel like it has larger ramifications throughout the world around me, and so on. And it's like, like you have gut punches when you go to Vermeer and you're like, hey, that thing about the fucking genophage, it's coming up now hard. And it's like sudden, like the way that your understanding of the world around you and the lore that's building up, and the fact that individual characters you care about are tied to each part of the lore that you've learned is just so well. It's just great storytelling. It's a great way to do. It's one of the best ways to do an RPG, basically.
I think. Did you ever play the Argonauts?
No.
Argonaut, I think
that's the one with the centurion or like knight, not a knight, but like a Roman or Greek shield warrior guy on the cover, and it's like mostly orange looking. Yep.
That what you're saying there about it being a good way to tell a story, it is absolutely the case. Argonauts basically copies all of the storytelling devices that Mass Effect has, and it also copies the interface a little and the basic structure of the game.
Is that Rise of the Argonauts?
Rise of the Argonauts, yeah. Sorry,
so some of these games just exist as a fucking like box cover in my mind for decades, but rent free with no context.
For that game, I mean, the game wasn't particularly great, but for that game, like, it works. It comes across, or if you have played Mass Effect and if you pay a little bit of attention, it comes across as a sort of low effort sort of game, because it borrows so much from Mass Effect in terms of the structure, and obviously not in terms of the setting, but they just use that to their advantage, and they knew they had a structure, because the fact that you go back to your ship and talk to your companions, and then the companions that you choose to bring with you have different takes on the stories that you're interacting with every time. That's fantastic. I wish more games kept being like that.
You are mismanaging your party if you make a game, an RPG game with a party, and that party doesn't have like different perspectives on the world from all of each other, where every single one of them has to be unique from both yourself and each other, and also they all have like different reactions and takes on each thing you're doing throughout the game, and friction with what you're doing, and even friction with each other.
I think that's the biggest that's the only failing. No, not the only failing, but the biggest failing of Obsidian is that they never managed to do that, even though they're so close every time.
Yeah, I've played Pillars 1 and Tyranny, and while your side characters don't completely vanish into the background instantly when you get them, they do, like, there's not much to them. Like, you'll even meet a character and like, oh, I like this character, I want to know more about them. Like, was it Sagani? Yeah, Sagani, the dwarf hunter, and like, oh, hearing about her culture is interesting, but ultimately it's like, you're here to find like a ghost wolf or something, and like that's the one beat. Like, she has like all of the companions in that game have like a Mass Effect 2 style loyalty mission that is like one 20-minute mission that comes up once over the course of like a fucking like 60-hour game, and you're like, that's it. And then they'll never talk again. They're basically side quests where the people that give you the side quest actually goes with you and fights with you. Yeah, and then they life pledged you for some reason, even though the stakes are so much higher than whatever the fuck they joined you for in the first place. Yeah, that's the other issue. Like, because you don't build that relationship necessarily, they need to justify it. And it's rough because at the beginning of the game, you have two companions that, of course, get killed immediately, because that's that format, just like in Dragon Age. Like, here's your temporary party members. Just kidding. I don't remember the name of the other guy. It's Kalishka and somebody else. Yeah, I liked her. It's she was great. Pillars of Eternity, Mass Effect, Dragon Age. Like, they just love to be like, and here's your temporary party. They're dead, because you always got to be like the guy that survived this thing. In Mass Effect, one of them's literally called L. Jenkins, as in Leroy Jenkins, and he charges forward and dies in the first cutscene. That's a choice in Mass Effect that happened. But
I don't know who Leroy Jenkins is. I'm sorry.
Oh,
World of Warcraft.
Yeah, there was a World of Warcraft meme that's one of the oldest and one of the most prolific early internet memes to some extent. Is this very popular YouTube video, or not even YouTube video, I guess, but just video that got around a lot, where the joke is that, you know, like you gotta, like every World of Warcraft boss fight or major encounter, like everyone sits in a room and like the guild leader or raid leader or whatever like slowly explains like what to do and what everyone's going to do and what their responsibilities are, and we're all going to go with their plan because, you know, it's difficult and full of teamwork and a lot of foreknowledge of what you have to know in advance to succeed. And like right in the middle of this guy explaining everything, the person you see is just they're sitting down on the ground AFK. So they're not listening to this entire thing because they weren't there. And he clearly just like sits down at his computer and his character pops up and he's like, all right, let's do this. Leroy Jenkins. And he just charges into the next room without any of the context. And he starts the encounter prematurely and all that happens. God damn it, Leroy. Oof. And his final line is like, at least I got chicken. It's just a weird thing, but it's like it's pretty reasonably funny, and it's like a 30-second random thing, and it was
that reminds me.
It was everywhere.
Earlier today, I was watching one of your videos where you were playing Sonic Boom with Andrew and Brian. I think I can't recognize the voice.
Joe.
And you were talking about Borderlands and talking about how it's basically, I don't know what it is, Mad but Max? You were talking about sorry?
Oh no, go on.
We were talking mad shit about Borderlands.
Yeah, you were talking about how it's the jokes are all about this one series or this one thing, and I played Borderlands when it came out, but obviously being completely oblivious to everything, I didn't know the context. So all the references that apparently are all over the game went completely over my head.
Well, it's there are a lot of references, but it's also just a lot of like lol random meme humor. Mm-hmm. And it's just kind of exhausting. It was written by Anthony Birch, and that actually piqued my interest because like I loved Hey Ash, What You Playing? But it's a big thing to be like, hey, you guy that made one web series for a few years with your sister, be the lead writer for an entire AAA RPG. And so he just had to, and then also like the context is like be funny because it's a comedy action RPG looter shooter thing. So he's just, you know, just kind of writing a bunch of jokes essentially, and then also the main story's like story, and it's just a lot. It's just it did not translate well for me, despite even being a fan of the comedy of the person who made it in the first place. Because it's just like silly nonsense. Shoot me in the head, shoot me in the head, shoot me in the head, and then you shoot him in the head, and he's like, you won, you shot him in the head. It's like, oh. See, it's like it's like that moment from Portal 2, but bad.
For me, me playing the game is just like, oh, it's a thing that I've never seen before, and it's not good. Well, at least it doesn't sound good.
When I see stuff, I'm like, oh, I get what he's doing. Because it's like, oh, you see a guy, and he's yelling, shoot me in the head, and the quest is called shoot me in the head, and the objective is shoot me in the head, so then you shoot him in the head, and then you win for shooting him in the head. Like, oh, it's the part from Portal 2. Because in Portal 2, there's the part where you fall into a trap, and Wheatley is like, this is the part where I kill you. And then the title is like chapter whatever the fuck, the part where he kills you. And then it's like in the bottom right corner, achievement unlocked, the part where he kills you. And it's like, that was an execution of that joke that worked in the moment, doubled by the fact that it's so hyped up, and you instantly subvert it by just, you know, puzzles platforming away and escaping his trap. And then he's like, oh, that
I remember that bit right at the beginning.
You weren't supposed to just like survive that. I don't know what to do. Like he's doing like his witty like Wheatley improv-y dialogue and so on. And then like, and there's so many layers to it. Like you can walk away and then come back, and then he's like, oh, you're back. Don't suppose I could just convince you to like just jump off to your doom, or oh wow, he actually did it. Like there's so many like weird branches to the dialogue there in a Stanley Parable sort of way. Like it's earned so much more than Borderlands just being like, isn't it funny? Your rocket launcher shoots dogs out of it. Crazy. And it's like I hate this game. And like they have a character like Handsome Jack that like is just the Repo the Genetic Opera guy, like with the where he has the face stretched over his face. And like I've already seen that character in Repo the Genetic Opera, so that was a little iffy to just put him in your game. But I'm like, okay, I see where they're going with this guy. He's kind of funny, he's kind of charming. Like they can go places with this, but then he's just like he never shuts up, and he's never that funny, and it's too obviously like internet meme silly wacky humor of like, oh yeah, this is my new diamond encrusted unicorn, I'm gonna call him Butt Stallion. He's called Butt Stallion for the rest of the game, and it's like this isn't working.
I remember the Butt Stallion.
This game's just not working. It's just not. So I can't. It's just.
Is it supposed to be a reference to something?
No, it's not. It's just constantly baiting to be like a meme every few minutes, basically. Like he's trying to. They're trying so hard. They're trying too hard, basically. It's like that kind of humor where he's like, okay, chill. Please chill.
For me,
it's so hard to be a funny video game, though.
Oh, yeah. The problem with funny video games is that the pacing is everything in comedy. And when the pacing is the person you're telling the joke to, it's going to fall flat. It's just, unless you take control and have a cutscene or the dialogue. Yeah.
Like there are games like Psychonauts and what that have genuinely made me laugh. But I hear and people keep asking for them because they think it's funny or they like it, and it's fine. You can like whatever you want, but like I hate playing fucking point and click adventure games where literally every observation and interaction is supposed to be a zinger joke, and it's like
it's like exhausting.
Not only is like it's basically never my sense of humor, but those games never shut up. It's so much, and I'm just like, oh god, I have to listen to 25 bad jokes to solve this one puzzle. I don't want to. This is why I play Wadget Eye games, because they're the serious point and click games, and they often have like a comic relief character, but they're not like trying to be a joke a minute, because those exhaust me.
Yep. There's movies like that as well, where they need to underline every serious moment.
There's going to be a movie of Borderlands. The best kind of humor is Hollywood humor. Ooh,
they just at this point they just hire the same actors each time too. Aren't two of the Jumanji people in Borderlands?
I think so. Yeah,
I think it's Kevin Hart and Jack Black.
Kevin Hart is like a bad sign for a movie. It's not a reassuring moment. It's kind of like what's it called?
I mean,
if he doesn't like Eddie Murphy. When you see Eddie Murphy, you're like, all right, this can go one of two ways. This is either going to be really funny or really fucking boring. Like, it's either like, oh, he's Shrek levels or he's Haunted Mansion levels. And you're like, what the fuck is this? Why am I here? Please end me.
Is he
like,
okay?
What do we do? Yeah, like, why did you... I get people work to make a paycheck, but like, please don't.
Did he make this movie at gunpoint?
It's like when there are comedic actors... Is this
Adventures of Pluto Nash?
So specifically, when there are comedians who turn into Hollywood actors, there's always this huge divide where you're either like, you nail it, like you do the Robin Williams thing where you're like, wow, every time you're in a comedic role, this is fantastic, I love you. And then your serious roles are kind of hit or miss. And then you have the others where it's like, okay, you can do some pretty serious roles, but your comedic roles don't work as well as your stand-up roles do. So like maybe you should only do stand-up comedy and not movie comedy. Like
I think movies are better suited for situational comedy rather than character comedy, just because of the length. Like even especially for stand-up people, they probably have a lot of trouble
again, it depends on like how good the comedian is in their improv game. Like a lot of the reasons that like comedy movies that have Robin Williams work is because he literally is good at improv. That's like a thing that he's good at. Whereas not all comedians are good at improv. Some of them need to write jokes, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But it means that like that's why the Ghostbusters doesn't work as a movie. It's because you have
I like the I prefer it as well. I mean, I can appreciate a comedic character or a comedic actor.
I mean, as far as I can tell, the first Ghostbusters are like really scripted, and the remake was very improv, and it was like, I hate this.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Is like
this format
like
of,
you can't.
Let's get some SNL actors together and have them just like hang out in a room for half an hour or 2 hours, and we'll pick our favorite 3 minutes, and that's the scene. It's like watching it's like Let's Players. You put them in a room and they like bait a bunch of scenes, and they just added a highlight reel of the best moments.
Oh yeah, Let's Players.
That 10-minute video took 6 hours to make.
Mm-hmm.
I want Edgar Wright. I want tightly scripted shit that like where the jokes are sharp, but also the whole thing is just sharp in general, and it's just a really tightly well put together movie that rewards watching over and over again, which I will do when it's actually a great movie.
That's exactly the point. Like movies that are better, or comedic movies that are well written, they not only do they reward you on a second watch because you notice more stuff and you find it amusement out of other things that you didn't notice, but like even after you come out of the movie theater and you just think about the movie, you just enjoy, you just get some laughs out of it. I remember having at least one movie like that. I don't watch.
You watch a
movies.
Paul Feig movie a second time and you're just kind of bored. You watch a fucking Edgar Wright movie for the 6th time, you're like, oh fuck, he did that. I never noticed that before.
Yeah,
like the pub crawl at the beginning of the movie is actually the same pub crawl they do in the rest of the movie, but like specifically each of the names of the bars reflects the plot point that happens at said bar. Oh my god.
Meanwhile, you have like the Jumanji movie, which I think its best joke was about being allergic to bread.
It's just so obvious I won't like certain movies in advance. They're getting so good at advertising comedies now that I can already tell which ones I won't like in advance. I've never watched like Jumanji or Sonic the Hedgehog or so on because I just know like I won't want to be there.
I watched Sonic with the assumption that it might be bad, but there's this one sliver, this one like potential universe where this could work because you have the right dice. You have like all of the correct dice here. All you need to do is just lean far less into the trope.
I love the first Jumanji.
Guy sitting in a car. Yeah, like first Jumanji, which is great. Why not?
A lot of it's a horror movie.
Well, yes, it's
a lot of the first Jumanji is fucking scary.
Technically, Jumanji's an isekai movie.
It's kind of a reverse isekai. It's a post isekai movie.
Well, how is it not? How is it not an isekai movie? It's Robin Williams literally gets transported to another world.
Yeah, but I'm saying like it's a post isekai movie.
Oh,
kind of like how there's like post apocalypse and there's post apocalypse, like the part that's after the apocalypse.
I get what you mean.
Like Robin Williams isekai
it takes place
is
after
off camera, and then he comes back, and that's the movie. His isekai is leaking into the real world.
I was gonna say it's kind of like almost a weird nega isekai because like the isekai world is leaking into the real world.
Yeah.
So it's technically the isekai. The other world is coming into the world.
It's Devilman Crybaby.
It's weird, but first Jumanji's a fun bag. There's a lot of like ridiculous shit in Jumanji, but I was hoping that Sonic would be more into that. I was hoping that they would lean a little bit more heavily into like the cartoonish angle and not the human, like not go the Transformers route where you're like, look at these really ridiculously stupid fucking robots. Wouldn't it just be funny if for an hour you watch them talk about stupid shit while they turn into cars? Sure. But instead it was like, what if you just watched people talking about stupid shit for hours and sometimes robots fought? And it's like, no, I don't want that. I don't want that at all. I'm
fascinated by people's media literacy. Like there was viral pictures going around on Twitter that were like bystander like film production photos of the Sonic sequel being filmed.
Yeah.
So they had like they had like these stand-in models of of Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails, just being like they're just like standing around like paper mache creatures basically. And the number of people in the comments that just I could tell like there's a specific way they're written, or sometimes they're just really blatant about it. I could just tell they didn't understand that like in the movie the creatures are CG and they don't use any real life thing, and the thing that you're seeing in the photo is not going to be in the movie. Like that's not it's just a stand-in model. Like it's only there. What? Like it literally just exists so people can like look at the right height to be looking at where Sonic's eyes would be and stuff like that. So
wait,
it's not. So
people
it's not
thought that was literally what they were going to look like in the movie.
I can't. I don't have it open right now, so I can't like contextualize it.
Did they not watch the first movie?
I was shocked by how many people were clearly not understanding how movies were made, and it was really interesting seeing the layers there. Because yeah, the goal is just to not be a situation like poor Ewan McGregor having to duel General Grievous, and as they showed like the behind the scenes, he's just in a fucking empty green room looking at absolutely nothing. It's like, oh god, like how they whippity, the blade's like inches from his face, and he doesn't even flinch because he can't react to it because it's not real. It's being added afterwards.
Yeah, that's definitely something that it seems that some actors are better than others at dealing with, is the lack of something to react with.
Well, it's also the directors. Like somebody has to tell them what they're even reacting to sometimes. Like, oh yeah, the animator's going to do this, and it's like sometimes it's so clearly just a guy standing in an empty room, and then the animators go fucking whole hog into animating the fuck out of the screen, but it's like the guy's just kind of there. Like I hate when the prequels were bad at this, where they had but a lot of movies also do it that I know of, like the King Kong Peter Jackson movie. I hate it when you have actors like avoiding like some kind of threat, but it's a CG threat, and they gotta like dodge out of the way or dodge through something, and like the animators go so heavy that every fucking particle of the screen that isn't that character gets obliterated. Like, and they're like no reasonable human would have ever like perfectly survived that situation. Like I think Clone Wars had Padme going through a weird droid smashy factory area where every single second, like 7 things could have killed her. And in Peter Jackson's King Kong, there's like a part where there's a stampede, and there's a stampede of like dinosaurs or mammoths or something. And like already you're like, how the fuck are they not getting stomped on? And then they all crash into each other, and all the dinosaurs like fall over in the stampede, and every inch of the screen is crushed, and you're like, how are none of them getting hit? Like, what the fuck? Like everyone's just fine, and I'm like, it takes me out of movies hard.
That just takes all the stakes out of it, because they're basically superheroes.
Because it makes them all look like cartoon characters. Yeah, it's like every time if a movie pulls that once, for the rest of the movie, I'm gonna be like, any action scene whatsoever, I'm like, okay, wake me when it's done, because it doesn't matter. If the screen looks like a Looney Tunes cartoon, then I don't believe there's any stakes, because I assume they're all just going to flinch. Yeah. They're just going to flex off anything that happens to them like Looney Tunes.
Well, that's my complaint about the Transformers movies. Is like they're just
Transformers
that.
It's definitely that problem.
It's just fucking noise. Like you could tell none of these people are reacting to like literally skyscraper-sized robots running around shooting missiles. Because I don't think people would be calm in that situation. Like, that's terrifying.
It's also it's like why I don't care about the ending of most Marvel movies, especially and like the first ones, and especially the kind of pre-MCU ones were especially bad. Like the first Hulk movie, where like they fight in like a lake against a thunder god, or whatever the fuck was happening.
Like that. Yeah, you remember remember it was just like I'm gonna build an Iron Man that's the size of a fucking building, and it's like what?
He fights Super
like,
Iron.
What?
He fights Super Iron Man, and then like. Both Hulk movies, one he's like a CG Hulk fighting in a lake, I think, and the other one was CG Hulk fighting a red CG Hulk, and it's like Wonder Woman, the ending of Wonder Woman, the first movie, where it's like, oh, two CG people are gonna punch each other a bunch of times, and then suddenly one of the punches is gonna win for some reason, and it's like sometimes it's like 10 minutes long, and I'm like, just tell me when it's over. I already know who wins, so like the stakes aren't there, but also it's not interesting to watch because it's completely fake and not even especially creative in how fake it is. It's why I'm cool with fucking Guardians of the Galaxy winning by dancing, because like, what, you want to watch them fight? It's fucking boring. Don't waste my time. Just do it. Like, might as well do the dance, and then the friendship hand holding explosion.
That sounds so sad, because there is good ways to have fight scenes. Like you can have interesting
Guardians
fights.
Is actually full of good fights.
But I don't find
scenes.
That's the thing though. I honestly don't find superhero movies to be like good battle series.
You
They're
gotta be
not
inventive
really
and
interesting
fun
to watch from like a combat phase. Like
like the close quarters Captain America elevator scene is better than the endings of most Marvel movies as far as fight scenes go.
Well, and that scene is just, you could still make that better. There's like better versions of that exist.
It'd be better if he wasn't a superhero.
Well, yeah, it'd be better if it was like, or you could just watch Old Boy, which is
the hallway scene.
bad.
Yeah,
like the hallway scene,
the hallway
elevator
scene that they tried to
like,
desperately chase every season of Daredevil. Daredevil tried to have the hallway scene from Old Boy every season. It was kind of funny. Like there, some of them were okay, but it was really blatant. Not even the remake could recreate the hallway scene from Old Boy.
I mean, or you could just look at like the 100-man fight in Ip Man. Like that's fantastic on how to fight a bunch of enemies at one time. And that was the whole plot of the first Avengers movie, was that like this horde of this army of enemies were coming in. But like at no point did it feel like they were fighting an army. It always just felt like, yeah, they're just punching some people sometimes and then they're just off doing something else. It's like, what? Did he, what? Why is this a threat to New York? I don't get it. I don't know. In any case, the point was that the Sonic movie had this opportunity, that it had a good character and it had a good aesthetic view. So all you had to do was just make it so you kind of slowly cut out this really bad portion of like man takes anthropomorphic animal to place on a car trope, and like if you could minimize that and increase a lot more of the cartoonish fight between Robotnik and Sonic, you could have had a really good movie.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, you look at the Quicksilver scenes from the X-Men movies, and then the other Quicksilver scenes from the Marvel movies, and then the Flash scenes from the DC movies, and so on. Like it's at this point, it's a trope that whenever people do a fucking the Speedster does a slow-mo scene, that the audience eats it up, and it's their favorite thing of the entire movie. It's like they talk about it more than the fucking Vader scene from Rogue One. So you think that something like Sonic the Hedgehog would be kind of a slam dunk, especially since those are all comedy scenes.
Yeah,
I literally have never heard anyone talk about how cool that slow-mo comedy scene from Sonic was.
It's boring. It's so boring. It's not interesting. There's no weight. There's no stake. It's just a fucking nothing sandwich. It's like, oh no, Sonic is
like that's all I know about the Snyder Cut. Practically, is everyone's talking about the fucking hot dog scene that the Flash does.
I don't even know, no, but
there's a scene where someone is some kind of crisis is happening and he uses speed to like save whoever. It's like a save the cat situation where it's like, I think it's near the beginning of the movie where there aren't really stakes yet, so it's just like a random incident happening, and I think he saves a lady, but also he like goes back to save the hot dog. It's like, oh no, can't waste the hot dogs. And I think either he eats the hot dog or he feeds it to a dog or something, or like he like there's a hot dog scene.
He manipulates it in slow motion, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of like those all those scenes where you like the slow-mo person will like spot like, oh, these bullets are headed straight for that person, so I'll just like flick them out of the way and slightly rearrange you so you're over here and da-da-da-da. Then it goes back to normal speed.
It's so done.
In Sonic, it was not like.
I mean,
that.
How is that? What was that?
How is that on a highlight? Like that has just been done so often, though.
Yeah, I think they're just fun to look at because it's got that like the appeal that those like old Matrix camera tricks had, but also they're like playful scenes, so they're just kind of fun, and it's kind of like at their best, a lot of these movies are playful, so that's just kind of the energy that a lot of people are there for in the first place.
Yeah.
So it feels weirder when you're watching the grim, dark, black and white Snyder cut of a movie and it does it. You're like, wait, what tone are we going for? This is the movie where Superman wears all black, right?
For no reason. Do a black and white cut of a movie.
Of a superhero movie.
Yeah, of a superhero movie.
You're not Schindler's List.
Yeah, like they're
he
like
wants it to be, though.
Cinematically, but then just make that. It's not like anyone's stopping him. He doesn't have to make a superhero movie. He had like all these years before the Snyder Cut came out. And he could have just not gone back and done that. He just didn't have to. There was no need for him to make a superhero movie. But he still wanted to.
That was a lot of money in it, apparently.
It's a bit of a vanity project, and it's also a bit of like a kind of like fixing a thing that was like a regret because he didn't get to like finish his movie. And like
he lost somebody, wasn't it? That he stopped being the He didn't do
because
the
he had to
original
step
movie.
off.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think his daughter died.
Yeah,
and so so I almost
maybe
said
it's also
Will
related.
Wheaton.
So I mean,
Joss Whedon came in and finished the movie up, and there's a lot of controversy about that stuff. And it's just like I get the idea of like working on a movie for like a lot of them, like at least like a lot of them are like take a year or two, and it's like it's a big project. So like it's just nice to know that somebody got to go back and finish their thing or do a version of it, because obviously he didn't really finish it, like because like that implies that it's that what we got is the thing that he would have made originally, which is definitely not the case, because like it's such a specific weird niche thing, and it's also like obviously a response to like years of criticism of said movie. So like it can only they can only fix certain things if he already saw the complaints about them the first time and specifically chose not to do them. So like anyone who thinks that this is his original vision are, I don't know, naive or dishonest, but like that's definitely not what happened.
I think they're naive.
We did not get the
yeah.
original Snyder cut either. Not that it existed.
Well, no, because it's not like he's gonna make a whole new movie.
Either, yeah.
Like
the original Snyder cut
only so much he
genuinely
can
didn't
do.
exist, but also like you don't come back in 2021 and finish exactly what you meant to make in like 2016 or whatever year it was. It's like you're essentially making the 2021 idea that you have now.
Yeah.
Knowing not only that you're basically been fired from DC and don't get to make any more movies after this, and also that people have had criticisms of this thing for years, so you have things to respond to.
I also wonder how fast do you think these people grow when they're in this level of directorial leads, basically? Because like
how fast do they grow, as in like how much did he improve in those years?
Yeah, that too, I suppose. But I mean, like even in terms of like like himself as a person and his ideas and his opinions and all this sort of stuff. How do you think that they ever can grow? Like, because they're basically
like
movie
can he
directors.
become a better person or a more interesting director or something?
Or just change
sometimes,
because you might make a movie into, like, if I made a movie.
I mean, I think he's still a randy and objectivist, so he shouldn't be making any superhero movies because it's countered the entire premise.
Yeah.
But that part aside, I mean, like, because I look at myself, if I made a movie in 2016, it wouldn't be anything like what I would do today, and I assume it wouldn't be anything like what I would do in 5 years, because I know myself.
I was uploading Sonic Boom this week and I hated it. Like
do you think
there's some highlights I liked and they made me laugh and so on, but there's like every single second I'm just like shut up, and I'm looking at myself. Stop talking. Why are you talking so much? Why did you think that thought needed to come out? I hated listening to 7 hours of 2015 or 14 me.
That's me though. I feel that way all the time. It's the hardest
I don't know.
hurdle to edit is I have to listen to myself, and I don't want to.
It's why I desperately. It's a reason why I desperately try not to edit like much. I try to. If anything seems like it needs editing, I try to do it that day based on memory, because I don't actually want to like rewatch anything and have to deal with myself.
You need to do what I do, and then don't listen to it. You just go for it by the cuts.
Yeah,
I mean
that's dangerous.
It's weird because
I have some weird editing mistakes in the old days because I was doing a little too automatically. Like I would episode cut. I would start and end each episode where I first and last talked, but sometimes I had like hit record, but like conversation was happening, or like the episode ends with like dialogue, but then I didn't say anything at the end after the dialogue, so visually it looks like the episode ended like a few minutes ago, and I could edit there, but actually the characters talked for a few more minutes, but I just didn't really have anything to say, so I just cut the episode. So like I think in Disgaea 5 there's like an intro and outro conversation of every single level, and there's like one or two times where I just accidentally skipped some of them in the editing because I just thought the episode didn't start or end there, and I was, especially back then, multitasking, editing and recording all this stuff while working a job.
Yeah.
Whoops.
It's definitely something. We all make mistakes.
Womp.
And they stay there forever because we don't take them down.
But to answer your question, I don't think Snyder has changed at all in the time between he started the movie and when he finished it. He doesn't really change much as a person or as a director in general. Most of his movies are not great. That's
there's perspective changes that might happen when you lose a family member.
Yeah, well, that's only what happens to like good artists. Not to
that might affect
artists.
On some level how you process writing stories about heroes and so on, which itself is wish fulfillment. When you're when your traumas and wishes kind of change over the years.
I don't know.
Isn't it kind of sad to be like you're at the top of your career, you're a super important person in your field, and everybody knows about you, and then you don't grow. Wow.
I mean, wow. I think it's a lot
more difficult to grow for sure.
I think you're inflating his value a lot more than it actually is. Like,
I think he's a super well-known director.
Yeah,
right?
But I wouldn't consider Zack Snyder like one of the greats. Like, I don't think anybody would be like, oh yes, this fun.
I'm not saying that
director.
His cult following certainly thinks. Like they're really obsessive on that.
Everyone's cult following thinks that, but that doesn't mean anything. It's valueless.
I'm saying that objectively, he's at the top of his career, and any director would do a lot of things to get to where he is, right?
Well, but I think the difference is not a lot of directors would do what he does to get to where he is.
For sure.
Which I think is the important part. Like a lot of people did what Hitchcock did, not even just to mimic him, but because the things he did were really good. And like
he's actually probably done with his biggest years as far as fame goes.
Yeah, probably.
Because like Zack Snyder movies did all right, but this like obsessive fandom didn't seem to exist until he was like the singular poster boy of all of DC, and he has not been hired by them again since Justice League, which happened a while ago now. So like there's this blip of him re-editing and redoing like that movie essentially as like a minor like special feature on HBO thing on HBO Plus or Max or whatever. But like they've made a bunch of DC movies since then, and there's more in the pipeline, and none of them seem to feature Zack Snyder at all. And so like I think his big fame years are over. I don't know, maybe we'll get Sucker Punch 2. I still think Sucker Punch is his best movie.
I like
Sucker Punch. It probably is, but
if it had done better instead of being a giant flop, which I think it was, maybe we'd have had a decade of like kind of fun Zack Snyder movies instead of exhausting grimdark ones where Superman's the worst person ever and so on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird to me to think. I don't know. It's weird to think that this was such a in demand.
The internet. Culture around it helped a lot, I think.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's usually how it works, but it's funny to me when I think about I guess the majority of people don't care. It's such a moot point. It's just more it's more content to consume. They have no stake in it. Like I doubt my grandparents give a shit about Zack Snyder or even know who he is. But if something showed up on like their recommendations, they might watch it.
Marketable.
No, but I'm saying that. But I think the average person is just going to watch something if they're interested in it, and less about like the director that directed it.
Yeah, directors. I mean, yeah,
and so like necessarily when I think about it,
if you talk about any kind of following or fandom, and then you compare it to the average person, it'll always work out that way.
I don't know. I think like Steven Spielberg would be a director that I think the majority of people have like some kind of intrinsic trust in. Even though he's made bad movies, it's just still like
household name. Basically.
Yeah, like there are household name directors, but what I'm saying is like Zack Snyder's just not even close to that. It's not even like a fraction of that close, and so I don't even know how I'm baffled the stars even aligned to give him this chance to remake a movie, but I'm more baffled that people thought that anybody could have thought it would be a good movie. Like it's such a weird disconnect to me to think to have like any positive feelings about.
I think he was in a pretty high place after 300.
Oh, I'm sure, because 300 did well, though, right?
Yeah.
Like,
but
did
then
that do
300
well in the
led to
box
Watchmen,
office?
which was itself was a DC comic adaptation, and then that leads directly into him doing all these DC movies. So we're still dealing with the consequences of 300 doing well, essentially.
What a terrible course in history.
It's hard for me to get over in movies like 300 and whatnot, just how like never for even a moment does it feel like you're watching real people in a real place. Like the movie is so deeply artificial looking that you can't even believe they're not just on like a soundstage. Like it just looks like they're like a YouTube video where everyone's green screened in, and they're all like there's such a heavy. It looks like they're like this doesn't look real. So we put 500 layers of artifice over the screen to hide how not real it looks. Like that's essentially what it feels like.
Yeah. It's like the dinosaur walking in front of the car in Star Wars. You're like, why? Why did you do this? You didn't fucking... This is fine. It's fine that it looks janky.
That really was his career.
It's okay.
Yeah, his first movie was Dawn of the Dead, then 300, then Watchmen. It was that quick.
Yeah.
And then then, like after Watchmen, he made the weird CG owl movie and Sucker Punch, and then he's just been doing DC movies continuously.
Yeah. I'm glad that they haven't hired him back, so hopefully that he can just go and not do those anymore.
He's got enough royalty money to
maybe it's a curse. Like, he's finally been freed from the curse.
Yeah.
Well, like he doesn't make good superhero movies, so like just free him from the curse. If you take him away,
because he just did superhero movies from 2013, and like he was working on it before then too, all the way up till Justice League came out in 2017. And then
has he made a good superhero movie? Like like Watchmen wasn't good. Neither was Superman. Neither was Justice League.
I have only watched it a couple of times, and I think I watched it in the cinema, and I watched the director's cut. For some reason,
I mean, it's good in terms of like it's a good lesson to learn about. Oh, you can lose. Like someone like this is what happens when someone doesn't understand the metaphor of your story. Like, yeah, it's a great example of that. But
he's got a movie called Army of the Dead coming out in like 2 weeks. I think maybe directly to Netflix, and that's the first Zack Snyder movie since 2017.
Direct to Netflix.
It has what's his face in it?
John Baptiste.
Dave something. Is that
Dave Bautista, not John.
Yeah, Dave Bautista.
In today's day, it isn't the same thing anymore, is it? Direct to video sort of movies,
or stuff going straight to Netflix. You mean like?
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, that's just, especially this year. But it was already going towards being like, these are just serious movies, and they're not just like the same thing as like a directed VHS Tremors sequel, although some of them are literally that. But like, yeah, there's more wiggle room now where it's like very like high budget, serious movies that, I don't mean like serious in tone necessary, but like serious in like scale and whether or not it's not just a shitty B movie or whatever. Pretty solid stuff comes out directly. Like I think we saw that when like everyone seemingly watched like Bird Box and Bright as they came out. And it's like, which aren't great movies. Bird Box is better. Bright is terrible. But like the scale and the hype that centers around some of these movies, and then the more that happens, the more they feel safe putting a lot of budget into it. At this point, like some of the best movies come out directly to streaming, and you just have to like kind of notice. And there's some good shit as a result. A lot of cool indie stuff that I've had a great time with, which was a lot of my list when we made our movie list at the beginning of this podcast series. But it was well timed, the fact that people were figuring that out for a while, because this last year, that's what filming and releasing of films was. Like in 2020, any movies being released were just mostly just being released directly to Netflix or HBO Max or whatever streaming service. Basically just out of like panic of just like we're gonna make some kind of money, right? Like maybe. And there was like a series of experimental like, can we get away with this releases?
I haven't watched a movie, like a new movie on the cable service or whatever it is, in a while. I wonder how it is though, like, because it used to be that whenever the DVD went out, it would be all over the world, sort of, or released by region.
TV edited. Ugh.
But the thing about streaming though is that if you want on-demand video is always very staggered. Like even Netflix here in Portugal is very, like we don't have the same shows. There's shows that are mostly there, that like especially the old stuff tends to be there, but new stuff takes forever to get added. So I wonder how it is with movies, because a new movie comes out, even like specifically in the theaters, a new movie comes out everywhere in the world.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird, confusing release things. Like, what is it? I had a day where we watched we had like a binge day where we watched a bunch of videos on other people's streaming services. So like, oh yeah, I'll watch that. I don't even have access to that normally. And we saw like Mortal Kombat and the new Mutants and so on. And yeah, I was noticing that like there were so many different things open that I'm losing track of them now. But I think it might have been HBO Max or something. They had like the new the new King Kong versus Godzilla movie, and it was like it had an expiration date. It was like this, like you buy it for full price to watch it, and it's on the service until like that day, and then it's leaving. And I'm like, what? Like, isn't it your movie? How does this work? And it's like, is that like its theatrical run? Is that the implication? Like it's going to be on streaming for this many weeks at full price, and then it's going to go away because of how the contracting works, of how theater versus eventual home video release goes. And then like, is it going to come back like 2 years from now as a streamable movie, essentially? Like, is it going to be like the weird cycle that it happens normally, where it's like first it's in theaters, then it's on home release, and then it comes out on streaming eventually, except it first was on streaming because theaters were streaming, and then comes back like a year later? Like, what the fuck what's the system now?
That sort of stuff really puts me off. Like people are so used to seeing their money just basically taken away every month by whatever thing they want. Like it's the subscription model, really. At the end of the day, it's scary. Like we used to be able to save up and buy a thing, and then we would enjoy it for however long we wanted it. And whether it's a console or with games or books or music or whatever. And these days it's not yours. You just pay for the privilege. And so anytime you want to stop, like imagine I buy music every month and I pay $10 every month. And I say $10 because is that still what Spotify charges for their premium?
Most services are now 15.
Okay. But imagine I spend $15 every month in buying music, which is about reasonable. And I just listen to it, and I rip my CDs into MP3 or WAV or whatever, probably OGG, and just enjoy it. And then suddenly I don't have a job, or my life situation changes, and I can't continue buying music. I can even sell the music that I owned. A lot of people did that, and I got a lot of music because of that.
Or potentially just keep it, and you're like, I just got all this music.
Yeah, stop buying and just enjoy the ones you have. You can stay like that for years.
Yeah, like the idea that if you lose your income, you can essentially lose the entire conduit to all existing entertainment media, because you don't get to keep any of the ones you've watched and seen the way you used to when you bought them.
It's super scary. Like,
because it is the normalization. Torrent it.
Oh yeah, for sure. But you could always do that. No matter what business model. The thing is, it's not torrents are like a personal choice thing. It's not for sure it's an option, but legal or otherwise it doesn't. That's not the point. My point is that as a society, people are used to. They have like not only. It's like. I mean, it's fucked up. I think it's fucked up.
It's weird because like take anime for example. Anime, when you stream anime, it's actually the worst quality you could watch it in. Like anime is made in a weird way that like you actually want to buy the DVDs because that's where they go back and actually fix all the problems. Because otherwise you just have so if you say you stream Attack on Titan season 1, that looks like garbage. It's really actual just like hot garbage. because it wasn't finished, it was rushed, and they just didn't have time to do a lot of fixes.
Yeah, that happens a lot, unfortunately, because it's the published to TV deadline, basically.
But yeah, so there's but if you watch the DVDs, they do dramatic changes, and they release these, they release the DVDs like months later. They come in like separate packs because they're supposed to be this horrible buying scheme to give as much profit as possible. So like 4 episodes are on one disc, and then 4 episodes are on another, and so on. It's
you're not crazy, by the way, audience. There is a mysterious voice in the background.
Yeah, sorry.
There is.
Sorry about that. But yeah, so it's that so that
It's the ghost of Attack on Titan.
What the fuck does that mean?
I don't know. It's just telling us the story. It's telling
the audiences don't care. Audiences don't generally care about audio quality in general. They don't care about quality because I always think about that funny thing where I think Donkey revealed on a podcast that like he didn't know how to record in any quality better than 480p or something, so he was just recording everything in 480p and rendering it in 1080p, and nobody ever complained or noticed.
But that's like, video. That's forever. Video. Yeah. Audiences, I think audio is way more important than video.
I meant to say audiences, not audio. Like audiences don't really care about quality. So like that's like streams just kind of won out, even though on many streaming platforms.
I see what you mean. Right.
You can only stream in like 720p. Even like in many cases, your screen, your TV is getting only 720p. Like, and I've known forever, like no one really cared because like you go to your fucking parents' house and like they don't even have their HD stuff plugged in correctly, or like they have like the HD, they have a giant HD TV they spent like $1,000 on or some bullshit, and it's set up in this giant entertainment center with a sound bar and all this other stuff, and they're using the fucking first 100 channels on cable instead of the like big numbers that are the HD versions of those channels. Like they're still watching the SD channels, and they're still watching DVDs and so on, despite having this massively expensive TV to like stretch out their low quality video they're watching all the time. And I just uploaded 720p videos for a very long time because they're 1/4 of the video data of a 1080p video, and I needed to be able to render so many videos every day to keep up with like my schedule and so on until Vegas actually got updated to have GPU accelerated rendering so it'd go faster, and that's when I started doing 1080p 60 and so on, because I just literally could not render that much video and upload it with it, and also still have time to record and do other stuff with my computer in like the 24-hour cycle. Like that just didn't work. I'd have to have like a render farm or some bullshit. And like
there's a lot of people do that. Oh, not on YouTube necessarily.
When my whole channel went up in quality, no one said anything.
No, you never got a single comment.
No one even noticed that all my videos suddenly went up from 720 to 1080 one day. Like no one
I'll
cared.
Be honest, I have so I don't use all my screens are 1080p, but I never maximize YouTube videos, and I watch everything on 480. I just watch all videos on 480p.
Like half these people are watching stuff on their phones anyway, where they can't fucking tell the difference between 720 and 1080. Their phone's fucking 4 inches wide or less. Like,
in fact, recording at a lower resolution. I mean, actually, if you played at a lower resolution, it could be better for people watching on their phone or on smaller screens because the text is bigger and the icons are bigger. But that's not usually that isn't a possibility because games just.
I often like to scale up the text size or the UI size when I can.
Oh, I do that as well. Yeah.
It's one of the things I hate the most about playing classic PC games is that their interfaces will be fucking tiny. So tiny. And if you watch like anybody playing those games, they leave the interface tiny. And I'm like, no. Scale. You got to scale that shit up. That System Shock, that Thief, that other games, like you got to make those
Morrowind.
Got to make all those interfaces chunky again. They like, like a GameCube game and so on. Its interface is often a little much because they had to make it readable.
It's much because of the TV.
With how blurry and small the screen was back then. So like you can go a little, you can definitely go smaller than many console games were in the 480p era, but definitely not like you definitely do not just like launch into a PC game and then like your whole interface is a series of tiny bars and squares and like
10 pixels the fucking, high at the end.
The like exclusively in like the like if you had a picture frame, they'd be in the frame part of the picture. Like they're all thoroughly away from where your eyes are ever looking and you can't see it ever. It's like no, that's got to be fixed. I hate it when I can't fix that.
Morrowind in particular is the one that comes to mind of just tiny little icons.
Like this is unusable.
It's a surprise that we can. I mean, it's not a surprise, but it's a blessing that we have that we can still play those games. 20 or 30 years ago.
Hell, I'd turn up the UI size in World of Warcraft because World of Warcraft always tries to like, oh, you've got a 1080p screen. It should be this resolution. I'm like, no, it shouldn't. Like it shouldn't. It wants to like, I don't want to fucking like get eye strain trying to read text in this game. It's like that's all the time. Yeah, I want to be able to see things.
The point I was trying to make though is that like there should be an obvious understanding that streaming media is a quick ends to a means. But it's not supposed to be the actual best way to ingest media. It's just supposed to be like, it's just easier for me to get it this way. But if you're looking for quality, then you should always be buying the physical of something. And games, movies, music, that's never changed. Like you should always be buying the physical releases of something. If that's
for games, I think for games has changed.
I mean, but okay, so you could buy the digital version, but you need to buy it from a place that's either like a mega monopoly that will never die, or you're buying that
even if it is
you're buying that with the risk that you know that you never own it. You literally never get to own that video game. And again, some games cannot be played without being updated. Like there are physical games like No Man's Sky, which you literally cannot play in the disc form. Like, how do you just play that without internet? It's not possible. It's a shit game. But
which is unfortunate because in many cases those are old games that don't exist anymore in that state, and so it'd be neat to have an archive. Like, oh, I could play OG No Man's Sky and see what that was like.
Yeah, and like so that's the thing is like there's a weird it's a weird type of media ingestment, and we haven't like. So far we have not run into the issue of, oh no, what happens when it's gone?
We have in some instances, like recently Sony has actually there was a big kerfuffle last month when Sony announced that they would be closing the PSN thing.
Yeah, then they canceled that.
But Nintend's already done this multiple times now.
I believe.
Oh yeah,
so.
Nintendo was terrible. That's good.
Oh yeah, no,
but,
I was only a few years late to playing Wind Waker and Twilight Princess's HD versions, and both of them constantly hook into a fucking Miiverse that already doesn't exist. And like soon enough, will have been dead for longer than it was ever alive. But like they might be HD or whatever, but like immediately both of those remakes are more outdated than the things they were remakes of.
Yeah,
it's like, it's like the original games are just they're just encased in amber and will always play exactly like they did originally. But the remakes are now old and defunct already.
It's weird, but it's funny to see. Wow. I just find it funny to see stuff like that with like media specifically, where there are a lot of features. Disney Plus is pretty good about this. Sometimes Netflix is too, about showing like behind the scenes content. But there's like a lot of stuff you also just don't get access to ever. That is just, it's content that exists that is for you, but you can't watch it because it's not being streamed on the service that you're watching it from. Like so like a good example is every Disney movie has a behind the scenes thing. Like for the animation, shows you like, oh, this is what we did. This is the concept art, blah, blah, blah. But like, you have to hope that the streaming service shows that stuff, because otherwise,
I think
you'll never see that. Like, that's just content you'll never see.
I think from a preservation, like I say this, and while I majored in archaeology, I'm not a particularly I'm not particularly preoccupied with preservation as a principle. Rather, as a concept, is very important. Obviously, we need to preserve things that we have and that are important to us as a society. But as a when it comes to a movie, like whatever movie it is from Disney or whatever, using your example, I think it's very important to preserve it because it's so important to so many people and obviously was influential for art. And 100 years or 200 years or 1,000 years in the future, having access to that sort of information is going to allow people to have a better understanding of where we come from as a society and where the medium comes from and all that sort of stuff.
And we squandered our growth potential.
Yeah, that's kind of true. You know what? I'm actually not. I'm kind of opposed to like physical media. Let's get rid of it. I don't think we should have any historical records.
We both fucking major in these things, and we're like, you know what we should be? Let's players. Instead of we could have been having a fucking channel like Dr. Mike and Legal was like a geologist and an archaeologist react to Breath of the Wild. That's not accurate. Blah, 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 blah. Those do great.
Do that.
Those videos do great.
Yeah, those do great.
You're not clickbaiting it right. It has to be a react video.
I complain about the plastic skeletons every chance.
Yeah, but that's just an rando thing.
That's in the
middle. You're making a let's play still. So
Yeah,
it's like fucking Corridor Digital and like the Rocket Jump people or whatever amalgamation is in that thing. Or they're like, animators react to the new Godzilla movie and so on. Like those do great.
I wonder if there's a channel that's dedicated to an IT professional reacting to fake computers.
Oh,
there
absolutely.
It's that channel.
Or there's like Real Hacker reacts to, or like
but I mean like
Real Inmate and Real
computers?
Guard react to Orange is the New Black and so on.
Like I'm talking about the computer systems in
Mr. Robot.
Yeah, not like that though, because like Mr. Robot's a bad example. It's trying to be realistic.
Yes.
I'm talking about like fake computers, like
when an Xbox prints a text document in
or
true crime drama that was.
Yeah, or like back. No, because again, that's real. That's like pretending to be real. Or like CSI
really
is supposed to take place in. Well, yeah, but it's supposed to take place in reality. But I'm talking about stuff that doesn't, like fantasy or sci-fi,
you mean
like those kind of
bullshit.
computers.
Yeah, I really got a kick out of. I was watching New Mutants.
The operating system for Aliens is a DOS-based operating system.
Yeah,
really? Fucking, you're gonna run an entire like space empire on DOS? How the fuck do you even send files? It doesn't have that functionality. Like what? Like
what does even send mean? I don't.
Well, I mean, like it doesn't have it's.
I know. It's so basic.
Yeah,
it's like
how do you send a picture in a non-GUI setting? You can't. Like that doesn't work like that. So like DOS couldn't. It would have to relay ANSI. You would have to, or you'd have to do like a but then that would be Linux, not DOS, because Linux can do pictures, but DOS cannot, and it's a DOS-based operating system. So like, this is a terrible idea. How do you view anything?
But honestly, though, I feel that the problem with those channels is that either they're really focused, like for example, Legal does that every once in a while.
They're just boring.
Yeah,
they're just boring channels.
Unless the channel focuses on like Legal does with just legal issues, and then every once in a while it goes in, this movie over here, isn't it bollocks? Let's go back to talking about politics. And unless it's like that, it's just boring because it ends up being cinema sins. And then
I always feel like Legal Eagle only works in the context of, hey, could you explain like a real legal thing going on right now that I don't understand?
It's a fun formula. Admittedly,
that works.
I enjoyed it more with Dr. Mike because Dr. Mike would just kind of say insightful things about weird medical shit, and it's like, oh, see, that's exactly how that works, and they'd add like additional context to it and so on. And then other times you just like chest compressions, and so on. And it's just like, I'm kind of learning something. Like, admittedly, legal stuff is way more boring, so I just prefer Legal Eagle's videos that are actually about stuff. But no, actually, I unsubscribed from Dr. Mike because there was a controversy with he has all this COVID coverage, and then he was like doing this like maskless bunch of people party in the middle of the pandemic, and was a huge hypocrite. And then when the controversy came at him, he sequestered away a little like no comments, no like bar apology on his like second or third channel where almost nobody that follows him would ever know it existed. and I only found out about it like months later from a third party because he'd hidden it from his main audience so hard. But I'm like, I don't like watching your videos anymore, really. If you're gonna keep talking about like what to do during COVID when you're like blatantly not doing any of the right things yourself, and it's like, come on, man, you're supposed to be better than that. But on the stupid computers topic, I watched New Mutants recently, and like I was so taken aback because it's like a 2021 movie. Admittedly, that one got delayed a lot, so I think it might have been made years ago at this point. But I actually liked it a decent amount. It was a fun movie. Better than probably most of the recent X-Men movies, which isn't that much of a bar, I guess, because they've been really bad lately. But the fucking computer, I couldn't accept that a 2021 movie computer was like this. But like, it was like a hyper stylized, ridiculous, glowy, like bunch of neon bars and text on a black screen, and the text is so big and so stylized, and like she's like opening up an email. It's like message receiving message, and like a little bar is like slowly filling up for like 10 seconds. It feels like I'm like, oh my god, it's going so slow. And then it's like a series. It's like somehow for some reason like a fucking like a movie or like video game interface thing. It's like one bar of text is coming in at a time to dramatically reveal the message, and then the last one's like big and red and so on. And I'm like, what the fuck? It's an email. Like, why does it look like a fucking?
Well, it's an email from your grandmother.
It looks like a 90s movie like security alert, and it's just a fucking email from her boss. What the fuck? Like, why is the email of dramatic timing? Like, what is this?
It's like those chain emails with a GIF.
I hate that stuff.
It's like.
I hate it so much.
It was really distracting.
Or a PowerPoint thing.
Like it takes literally 0 seconds to record a screen. Like just record a fucking screen doing something.
No, that's the directors usually. I imagine
so easy.
Anyway. Or the producers being like, we need to spice this up. And but that's not how computers are.
Every movie goes through like at least like somebody has to work on CGI for something. Like every movie has some level of CGI, even if it's minimal. Like the person who did that computer screen had to have fucking CGI'd it. It had to have been like a green monitor that they overlaid the graphics onto.
Like every screen in a movie is fake.
Do your fucking job right. Just fucking make it look right.
They just can't have. It needs to be fake because you can't record.
But I'm saying, It can be fake, but you can record real footage to put into that fake computer.
Yeah, for sure.
You don't have to do this like weird cartoonish shit.
What I'm saying is, they do it on purpose. It's not like
I'm sure they do. It's cheap, it's easy, and it's infuriating. But like,
if anything, they might be taking the piss of people watching and be like, look at those nerds complaining that this isn't Windows or something.
But it's just it showed to me this moment I see that it's like, your respect is gone. I don't care how good your movie is. I just don't respect you. You don't have the care to put into your world that this computer system isn't something made from like the fucking Dark Ages. All right, sure.
Think of a movie like Her. Did you guys watch Her? Where there's this operating system that is basically an AI, and it's got like all this beautiful interface, minimalistic and all that. It's basically an operating system, but the graphics look pretty neat. Now imagine if that were what you saw in that movie.
All I know about Her is that everyone has a shell phone and it's never addressed. Oh wait, that's not.
I think that's just a stylistic.
I think that's It Follows. Never mind.
It Follows.
I don't remember. There's some movie where everybody has a shell phone, like it's a shell.
Oh yeah,
and everyone has that, and it's never addressed. It's just a weird fact of that reality.
SpongeBob SquarePants.
No, I think it might be either It Follows or Her. I'm not sure. I've only seen It Follows.
No, it's not Her.
It Follows.
It's not Her.
They might have like special kinds of phones because it's in the future. I don't remember what type.
It's
but
really
when you said
funny
shell
because
phone,
it's a horror movie where like an STD monster chases you that seems to be entirely normal modern day with no changes, but everybody has a shell phone for some reason. It's so weird, and it's never addressed. It's not important. It's such a weird like fucking with you thing.
It's weirder if I tell you that that's a common phone in like everywhere but the US.
Like surprise, everyone's been using shell phones all the time.
We're not talking about like clamshell phones. We're talking about a literal seashell.
Yeah.
No.
Right?
Wait,
Yeah.
what?
Yes. That's why I'm saying
Yeah.
shell phones.
I thought I
Yeah,
thought you were talking about the flip phones.
No. I mean,
No,
like,
no, you flip
Wait, they have
phones,
like actual fucking shells, like they pull out.
They're like living a pun.
Like they just pull out like a hermit crab
Everyone just
shell and
pu-
just hold
yeah.
it to their ear.
Everyone just pulls out a shell, like a nice little, like one of those like nice even shell station style, like clean shell shapes, and it almost looks like it'd be like somebody's like makeup kit in a mirror. But no, it's
that's
a cell
weird.
phone.
Makes sense.
They all have
That's-
one.
yeah, that's
and
really-
it's never
I don't know about
addressed by
that.
the film, and you're like, what? It's like a
I
thing
don't
that's
like
just
that.
it's like the movie's checking if you're paying attention or almost. No, I found by the way, I found it kind of interesting, and I don't know, I'm not like an expert on this kind of thing, and I don't have much perspective, but like seems like something to give kudos for is that not X-Men, the New Mutants is like about mental illness, and it's about an asylum, like in that kind of place, but it doesn't do either of the go-to things where it doesn't demonize mental illness and make it like this evil villain monster thing the way that the Joker does, for example, and it also doesn't fetishize it the way a lot of other media does, and it also doesn't fall into the trap of like making the concept of a mental institute like a horror location that's out to get you, and it's like and like that usual thing where like someone gets trapped in a horror asylum. Like they kind of sidestepped all the really obvious exhausting tropes, and instead they tricked you. Because what the movie's really about is that all these kids have some kind of past trauma, and specifically the newest addition to this location, her ability is that she makes people's deepest fears manifest in reality. And so what happens is like there are a bunch of people that are like it's like Breakfast Club a little bit, where these characters are these young people, these young adults and or teenagers are stuck with each other in a place, and they just kind of have to interact with each other, and they don't get along that much, but then they go through shit together, and that kind of builds a bond between them. But in this case, it's their literal deepest fears manifesting in reality. And that's the premise of the movie. I'm like, oh, that's fun. That's an interesting idea. That's better than I thought it was going to be, because I was like, I feel like for a year now I've seen New Mutants floating around, and I'm like, that looks like trash.
I don't think I've seen anything about them or about it.
But I will say, motherfucking Arya Stark from Game of Thrones turns into a wolf in that movie. That's her power. And her fucking...
That's pretty good.
The wolf she turns into is like gray, but every time the CG fur comes out of her neck and shit when she's transforming, it's black. I'm like, incorrect. Bothers me.
Wow.
Why is her like morphing thing? Why is it a different color than the wolf she turns into? Maybe it's some excuse about how wolves have multiple coats or whatever, and like those are all technically different colors or something. So maybe it makes sense, but intuitively it doesn't make sense, and it bothered me.
Gray foxes do have that sort of undercoat that is black.
So every time she transforms, I'm like, that's the wrong color.
They went to zoologists and asked, how should my werewolf behave?
I'm pretty sure they just didn't know. There's somebody else who worked on the animation side who didn't know that it was supposed to be gray, and they just messed up. And
or maybe
you
clashed
ain't
with...
gonna pay to fix that. That's too expensive.
If it's like props or makeup instead of CGI, I mean, they can always change it in post. It's kind of, I mean, you never know. Sometimes props just don't work with the cameras.
Yeah,
really
but I'm
weird.
saying, like, I feel like if you make a mistake for a show, it's a lot harder to find the money to fix it than it would be in like a movie.
It's for a show. Yeah.
It was a lot better than Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat was not great.
Well, no. Why would it be?
It wasn't even that fun.
Yes.
It's really disappointing.
Why would it be? It's a fucking fighting movie.
Yeah,
but it's not like a martial arts movie, so it
like
doesn't actually have good
fights. The previous
fights.
ones
It's
are like
just
famously fun to people. They had fun with it, but the new one is just so.
They tried to be serious about it. Oh,
I think a lot of that is like nostalgia.
I mean, all of them were like a cheesy version of taking themselves mostly seriously, but obviously kind of aware that they're a Mortal Kombat movie. And this one's also like people literally like will fatality someone and be like, flawless victory and stuff like that. They literally say the lines from the game sometimes. Like they're being cheeky about that.
but also like, no, it's just they made, I think they made up a new character to be the protagonist, or he's someone I've never heard of, and he's just a fucking wet piece of wood. Like, he's just nothing. He's so fucking boring.
Wow.
And the whole thing has this like, it feels like when you take a fantasy novel that's like 800 pages long and you adapt into a 90-minute movie, and everyone's like, so like so much of the movie is like, it's like Aragon, or that one Mars, John Carter of Mars movie, where it's like the whole movie's exposition, and it's like fast exposition, and it's so it's like major story beats are just happening so quickly because every single scene just has to get shit done. Like, somebody changes teams every other scene practically, and it's like, and there's like no, it's so abrupt. Like, it's just like one conversation and like, oh yeah, no, I will work for you, just like that. And most fucking damning is the fact that like it's all building up to this conflict between the good guys and the bad guys, basically. But like the bad guys infiltrate the good guys' hideout and like attack them, and you're having your lowest moment in the story where, oh no, our most promising person is dead, the most likely person to win the Mortal Kombat for the good guys, and we've lost our place, and oh, what a bad place to be in, oh no. And then it's like they're like teleported into a void, have like a 30-second conversation, then immediately teleport to all of the bad guys that are now all over the world for some reason in separate locations, and they just all defeat them. Like, there's such a whiplash between the lowest point and the victory that it's just immediate. You're like, wait, what?
How do you mess up a tournament arc?
They practically one-upped. They practically just respawned and fought them again, and then they won, and they won the second time with almost no change. And then like, it's a whole movie about people like, because if you have the Mortal Kombat like brand that makes you the chosen one to be forced into the tournament, you have to, it's like this big like training arc to try to like unlock your secret power that'll help you win the tournament. And like, so everyone's training for that, but then motherfucking Sonya gets her brand in like the final part of the entire movie and instantly uses her power, and I'm like, what the fuck? How do you the whole movie's about how hard it is to like unlock your ability, and you just instantly, the moment you have it, you just got it. Like, what is this bullshit? And it's also not a tournament arc because it's a pre-tournament arc, because they're sequel baiting for the tournament in the sequel.
What?
It's the movie.
What do you mean it's not a...
The movie is about how there's a
game is about a tournament. Yeah. How do you even have? There's no plot besides that.
I'm literally explaining it to you. The movie is about how there's a tournament that determines the fate of reality, and if Earth Realm loses one more tournament, then the Shadow Realm will completely take over forever, and so on. And so they're building up this tournament, and what's happening is that the Shadow Realm people are cheating, so they're trying to assassinate all the Earth Realm people on Earth before the tournament by hunting them down. And so this movie is just them trying to unlock their powers and not get killed. And they do basically still just win and kill everybody. But then they don't even Shao Kahn or whoever the guy is, it's like, it's like, I've got more dudes though for next time. And so like, I think the next movie's the tournament with another cast of evil dudes.
What? Okay. All right.
That doesn't sound, I don't know. That doesn't sound particularly outlandish to me.
That sounds
I'm not bothered by that idea. It's just the whole movie's bad.
For sure.
You're not going to write a good story.
Every character makes stupid choices every second. Well, the combat's not like that great, and it's just like. But more than anything, it's just that it's a really not that complicated movie that for some reason needs to have like 60% of it be it explaining its own plot. And it's like, oh god, this is so much exposition.
That's what I mean. Like, I don't know why you need to do that. Just every fight each other.
Every scene felt so rushed. It's in such a hurry all the time.
Like I mean, they have to do the exposition. They don't have time for the rest.
What drove me fucking crazy is they established like, we got to hide you. We got like, whether you're going to be good at the tournament or not, we got to take you away from your family because they're like tracking your mark and they're gonna hunt you. So you got to stay away from your family because they'll be in danger. And then they're like, I'm sorry. He has this like sad moment, like, I'm not good enough. I can't unlock my power. I'll never unlock my power. I'm sad. And Raiden's like, okay, then go home or whatever. And he gives him a portal to go back to his family. And immediately his family gets attacked. I'm like, what the fuck did you think was going to happen? You still have the mark, you dumb motherfucker. And then it's like, but of course I'm like, I wasn't fucking born yesterday. So I'm watching this movie. I'm like, oh, I get it. It's the protagonist and his family's threatened. So he's going to unlock his power at the last second to save his family instinctually. And then that happened. And I'm like, cool. I've seen movies before. Thanks, Mortal Kombat.
Nobody saw that coming.
and his power's stupid. He just renders like cords of like golden looking cable all over his body as like an armor, and he fights him with like bladed tonfas, and I'm like, we didn't even establish you know how to use tonfas, what the fuck? And he just like immediately takes out Goro with fucking tonfas. I'm like, that you've been an MMA fighter this whole time. All you do is punchy and kicky, and you were specifically bad at it. You were the one that loses all the time. Where's this tonfa skill coming from? We never established you know how to use tonfas. Why is your secret ability creating tonfas? And like their abilities are so weird because it's like, okay, Sonya shoots like a Vorpal shockwave thing. Kane, metal face with the red eye guy. He shoots a laser out of his eye. Kano. Obviously, Scorpion has a grappling hook thing that he shoots out. Sub-Zero ices people. Like, okay, these are so far more or less making sense. That one guy throws his hat and as a disc that spins. I'm like, okay, that's weird that it's like an outside, like everyone else has an elemental power. I don't know why your power is like,
that's from the fourth game, I think.
Especially, like that guy's a little weird. But what gets weirder is guy who manifests armor and tonfas for some reason, and even weirder is Jax, whose arms get frozen off and broken off by Sub-Zero. Then they give him shitty mechanical arms that aren't very helpful, and they're not doing a good job. And then, as far as I can tell, him unlocking his power in the movie is when suddenly his shitty mechanical arms turn into super buff arms. And then they just permanently become super buff, like jacked arms. And that's his, as far as I can tell, that was him unlocking his power. His power is that the augment that already existed on his body suddenly became a different augment. And I'm like, wait, what? What are the rules behind these brand powers? Because like I thought I had it down when it was like, here's the ice guy and here's the fire guy and here's the laser guy and the Vorpal shockwave person, but now I'm really confused. Like it was literally like like everyone else has an obvious reveal scene of like, oh, that's their power, and it clicks, and you're like, I get it. But like literally 10 minutes after Jax's power unlocked, we were like, wait, was Jax's power that his arms got buff? and everyone's like, yeah. Everyone's just laughing about it.
What was Sonya's?
She shoots these purple like shockwaves that looks like the stun gun. It's like, looks like when your phasers are on stun or your guns are on stun in Star Wars. It's like the rings that shoot out, but they're purple.
Oh, okay.
She shoots like purple rings out, and they pretty much just like delete people. Like someone gets gored by them, and I'm like, oh, that's her power. She literally gets her brand, and then goes to a place, uses her power, kills somebody instantly, and then is basically never seen again in the movie. It's like there's like a fucking 5 second between. There's like 5 seconds between her gaining the brand and instantly killing somebody with her power and then being out of the movie, essentially. Like, it's so rushed.
Impressive.
That movie's in such a hurry.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect much out of a Mortal Kombat movie, but wow. That sounds bad.
My expectations were low, but holy fuck. I love that image. Anyway, guys, terrible. This has been Dialog Choices. It's time. We need to wrap up for a variety of reasons, really. Yeah. You can send your questions to dialogchoicespodcast@gmail.com, and we'll answer them next time. There are a couple of them, but not that many of them. So
get them in quick.
Yep. Get on with it.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.